And I think everybody is here. Hi, Jeff. Welcome everybody. And on that note, it is 4:01 p.m. on Wednesday, April 21st, and I hereby call to order this special meeting of the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District. Shauna, could we get a roll call, please? Shauna?
Thank you. Director Aguirre?
Here.
Director Bender?
Here.
Director Bender? Director?
Here.
Oh, Shauna has disappeared. Oh, she may be coming back.
Notice?
Here.
President Finn?
Here.
President Finn. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to defer the pledge today. Brian, do we have any changes to the agenda?
President Finn, there are no changes to this evening's agenda.
Thank you very much. Public comment. This is time that is set aside for the public to address the board on any matter that is not on the agenda. Testimony related to any agendized matter should be addressed at the time that is considered. Shauna, do we have any public comment this afternoon?
Yes. From Keller. He said,
we're having some real technical.
the rate pay.
Shauna, we cannot hear you. You might have to log off and log back on.
Okay.
I'm gonna move location now, so I think our computers bounce off each other.
Okay, well, we'll give her a minute to. We cannot hear you still.
Yeah, you can hear me.
Regina, would you read out the question and answer?
Absolutely. Hopefully my connection is a little bit better than Shauna's.
You are very clear, Regina. Thank you.
So public comment at 3:47 p.m. came in today. Reading same question as yesterday. Could you please tell the ratepayers how much money they spent on all of the NDAs combined over the last 3 years? And that is the only public comment I am seeing.
Thank you for the comment. And I don't have any.
Does it say who it's from? It's from Ken Eiler.
Thank you. That is in the record, and we will get around to that, but that is not in front of us this evening. So thank you for the comment. And now that brings us to directors' updates. Do any directors have an update they would like to share with us this evening?
Yeah, just take this opportunity to recognize that April 18th was National Lineman Appreciation Day. And I want to say a shout out to our men and women on the front lines doing all the hard work, keeping our electric system up and running, and certainly appreciate linemen and as well as the rest of the staff who do a fantastic job providing water and electricity. Sorry, wrong agency. Providing water and electricity at the highest standard that I've been accustomed to. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Director Laliotis. Director Harris, I saw that you were.
I'll second that with Tony, but also it's Administrative Professionals Day, I believe, today. So we want to thank all of them, especially this week. It definitely has been the marathon meeting week for us. And I know the administrative professionals have put a lot of time and effort into scheduling all those. So I do appreciate it. And I do want to welcome everybody who is here listening. We can't see everybody. unless, I guess you're registered for a Zoom call, but I hope that it's always good to see the public process happen and making this available for people. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Harris. Do we have any other directors who would like to say anything this evening? Okay, very good. I just kind of want to echo both Director Harris and Laliotis. This is a marathon week. Thank you all for making the time, the energy, and coming at it with all of your dedication. We really appreciate it. Which brings us to the General Manager's update. Brian.
Yeah, thank you, President Finn. I want to echo both Director Laliotis and Director Harris. Echo?
You're hard to understand. It's echoey.
Yeah, we're getting a bit. Shauna, maybe mute.
Yeah.
There. How's the echo now?
Can you hear me better now? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to echo the sentiments. Last week, lineman appreciation. Today, as Director Harris said, administrative professionals. We've been recognized over the last couple of weeks for the RP3 and then some great work we're doing. And to quote one of our admin professionals today, it does take a village to accomplish this work, and that is never more true than an organization like ourselves. A lot of work behind the scenes and out there in the public that has to be done at a high level in order to deliver the service we do. So congratulations and great job, everyone, with the district and the admin professionals and all of our sister public agencies out there. So appreciate the work. That's my update for this afternoon.
Thank you, Brian. All right, that brings us to item number 8, our strategic plan workshop, the main event tonight. And I guess we get to sit back and participate, but also listen. And I will hand off the baton. I believe Pam is here to take it from me. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Brian, did you want to start with any comments?
Yeah, thank you. So this is this evening, workshop number 7. I want to congratulate everyone. This has been a great journey. This is the last workshop before we present to the board the strategic plan for consideration for adoption. So we're going to present this evening a little bit of background and set the frame, set the stage of where we've been and what we've accomplished together as a board and staff, and kind of do an overview of what we're about to present to you on May 19th. A lot of great work, and I'm very excited that the district has the opportunity to establish a really important document for us moving forward over the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years. And this is going to be a guiding document that we all draw to moving forward. So very great work, and we're excited to start with the presentation. Pam, I'm going to share my screen when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. Can everybody see this okay? Kind of thumbs up. I see Director Harris's thumb. Okay. Thank you. As Brian said, if you could go to the next slide, Brian. So this is our last strategic planning workshop. Can you believe it? I mean, it's just like, yeah and no. But I just want to thank staff. We have covered a lot of processes that they have not seen before. And not only have they embraced them, but what you're going to see tonight is really the handoff. Last workshop and this workshop is really the handoff to the board and staff for you to make sure this strategic plan is implemented. The most important thing is the outcome, and strategic planning encompasses lots of ideas. And we talked about traditional, innovative, visionary ideas, and they're just as good as the organization implements them. So Brian and I are really excited to share with you tonight. This is all about moving forward and the next chapter and looking through the future lens. And guess what? You're going to hear from every executive leadership team member tonight. And you're going to be able to see deliverables. And I know you know that we worked from the beginning. We said we were going to marry behaviors to the PUD values. Jillian and Brian and the executive leadership team, we all work together, and that has been done. Can't wait for you to see that. And to hear what these behaviors are. And remember that when values, like integrity is one of our values, but what are the behaviors that integrity really exemplify? So if I know a value is integrity, and I might ask President Finn or Director Bender, you know, what is integrity to you? We do have a definition, but it's how we act with integrity. So those are the behaviors and the process. And I'm really excited for you to hear those tonight. Then each department is going to share their capital projects and sustainability resiliency projects under each of the 5 board goals. And I'm really looking forward to Brian sharing how this is going to be implemented in the future. This will be really cool for you to hear from every single ELT member. Then we've had general manager task force meetings. And thanks to each of you for playing such an integral part. And tonight, we're going to have updates from our wonderful staff facilitators, Stephen, Joe, and Brian, and each of you who have participated. After the updates, we're going to ask for board discussion. And this is going from a task force to task force, one at a time. After each one, we'll have a task force really in-depth board workshop discussion with staff. And it's so important to remember that these initiatives are board initiatives. It's very hard not to take them personally, and they're my initiatives because we're passionate, right? And so it's very important for each of you representing your task force initiatives to really hear what your colleagues feel and believe. So we're going to be talking about that, and also what you think the roles should be for the board moving forward. Then we're really going to share with you, we've shared with you the ESG model, but we have a question for you that is going to be a good workshop question for you to think about and talk about. And I'm excited for that discussion. It also has to do with roles, but what should the PUD's role be in the community as it relates to the ESG model? And then Brian and I want to share with you what the table of contents is for the strategic plan, because it's quite a document. And we want you to know what you'll see before the May 19th, so you can study it and read it and ask questions and be ready for the adoption on May 19th. So that's where we're headed. Brian, let's launch. Just a reminder of our strategic planning and board ground rules for staff and board. We active listen. There's no wrong answer, and we're going to have much discussion tonight. So we want to be sure that everyone's heard, that there's lots of collaboration and always mutual respect. You've seen our pillars at every single workshop. So this is the 7th one. And one of our emphasis tonight is going to be on the employees. And you're going to get to meet Jillian Stewart, our human resources manager. And she has really led the effort in taking values and marrying them with behaviors. Next slide. Just a reminder that we are really focusing on June. What happens once this is adopted? What can you expect as a board? What is staff excited to deliver? And what's their next steps? So with that, I want, Brian, would you like to officially introduce Jillian to the board, please? You're on mute.
I'll never get that down. Thank you. Yeah, Board of Directors, I would like to take the opportunity as we begin this next portion of the presentation. Jillian hasn't had an opportunity to present yet. You'll see her much in the future, but I would like to introduce our relatively new, we brought her on board last fall, Jillian Stewart, our human resources manager. Really excited to have her on board. She's hit the ground running, and you'll see this evening the great work she's already has underway here. So I'd like to welcome Jillian Stewart.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, President Finn, Vice President Laliotis, and the board members for having me here today. I'm really excited to attend my first board meeting and many more to come, and especially to share the results of the workshops we held to identify the behaviors to each core value. The team was really engaged, and these conversations resulted in informative and productive exercise, especially for me being new and still getting to know everyone. I found a lot of value in being able to attend each of these sessions. Before I go into the behaviors that were identified by the staff, I'd like to provide a little more background on why we held the workshops and the process. So first, the why. We really found that identifying behaviors for each core value provides us all with a common ground for expectations, language, and understanding on the meaning of each value and how we uphold them. This will provide us a foundation of aligning and really integrating core values into all our processes and cultures here at the district. So the process to determine these behaviors, we held 5 meetings facilitated by each department manager, and where every employee in attendance had a chance to brainstorm behaviors on each of the core values, and then were asked to vote on their top 3 per value, so top 3 behaviors per value. I then was given all of that data from the managers and evaluated them to find the top behaviors for overall for the district, and that's what I'll be presenting here tonight. We held a train the trainer session before the workshops with each of the managers, or as collectively as a group of managers, to ensure consistency of the deliverables. And I also attended each of the sessions to be able to be firsthand hearing the feedback and to ensure consistency and provide support as well. So department participation, we had 18 employees attend the electric department meeting, 8 for water. District clerk and IT were combined, and then we had a couple linemen join us last minute because we wanted to ensure that they were able to participate, and they had a last minute emergency that didn't allow them to attend their electric department win. So they joined district clerk and IT, and that was 7 in attendance for that meeting. Admin services had 11. So that's a total of 51 employees who shared feedback with us out of 65 current active employees, with a 78% rate of getting that feedback from our team. And just a side note, this also included myself in each of the meetings and the executive leadership team and the general manager in attendance. So jumping right into the behaviors identified by our teams for each core value. The first one for safety. Safety is our way of life. Those behaviors that were identified by our team, the top 3 were look out for each other, situational and work environment awareness, creating safe work habits and spaces. Next, communication, send and receive. The behaviors tied to this were collaborative, two-way communication, set clear expectations and acknowledgement, set clear expectations with acknowledgement and understanding from each party, and be respectful with whom you're communicating. Integrity, honest and ethical. Behaviors tied to this were do the right thing even when no one is watching, be consistent, and do what you say. Accountability, own it. The behaviors are own and learn from your mistakes, be responsible for your own actions, and be honest with yourself and others. Timeliness, meet our goals and commitments. Behaviors are respect other people's time, be prepared, and be responsive. And the most fun one, work-life balance, work hard and play hard, have fun and model healthy habits while at work, set boundaries for home and work life, and choose to have a positive attitude while at work. So from here, again, it was a fun exercise and we got to learn a lot, especially myself, about the team and the different perspectives. And I think it was just a good exercise for all of us to learn a little bit more about each other. And we're looking forward to continuing to build upon this in the future. And thank you for the opportunity to present this today, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Jillian. I wanted to, before we get into questions, I wanted to just kind of add to that. I got to observe a few of the meetings and the workshops with Jillian and the mid-level managers and all of the staff. And I have to say, it was a great opportunity to really have some discussions on what behaviors staff across all levels, across all work groups, across all responsibilities, how they identified these behaviors and tied them to the values. It was an important exercise, and I think it provided an opportunity for everyone to really understand how each other, how we model these values and understand perspective. So great exercise. Thank you, Jillian, for facilitating this, and thank you to staff for participating. A lot of great discussion. Very, very a fun exercise.
And Brian, could you talk a little bit about next steps?
So in terms of next steps sorry, I was trying to make sure my screen was correct. In terms of next steps for connecting values to behaviors, is that now we have an understanding of where to begin from in our staff development and professional development processes moving forward. And so Jillian, mid-level managers, group leaders, foremen, really have a great understanding of where everyone sits in terms of what behaviors reflect the values we have, and we can really start working as a group to collectively develop some good professional development and really paint the picture of what the work life here at the PUD will look like in the future. So it really sets the tone moving forward. How this fits into our strategic planning process is one of the fundamentals of everything we do moving forward. So our goals, our initiatives, our targets, we utilize these values we've just discussed and reviewed with the behaviors as models moving forward. So it further enhances this district's ability to deliver to deliver on each of the goals the board has set in place for us and all of the projects that nest underneath those. And so it really becomes an effective model moving forward for efficiency and productivity. And most importantly, it provides, what we talk about, the work-life balance and communication across the entire district.
Any questions, comments?
Just a lot of work. Really appreciate seeing the values again and just diving in with 78% of the employees. So that's a staggering connection rate there, and just nice to hear that a lot of one-on-one contact discussing in these groups all the values and connecting it to behaviors and that connection to our goals and where we want this district to go. So really appreciate it, and nice to hear this. Thank you, Jillian and team and everyone.
Jeff, that comment's so important because it was important to Jillian and Brian and to the ELT that these were voluntary meetings. So these weren't mandatory, and that's a very high percentage, and shows that people are very, very interested. So kudos. Any other comments or questions?
I do. It's President Finn. I do. I have to say this was one of the parts of this workshop that I was the most looking forward to, because I think it's really easy to talk, but it's harder to walk the walk. It's very helpful to have actual behaviors to marry to a concept. And it gets us all kind of on the same page, at least to begin with what does communication look like, for example, what does timeliness look like? And I look at these things as this is a common starting point for everything. And it's extremely helpful, and it's harder to do than I think we would think, So I really appreciate you all putting it together, and also our employees participating and helping us do this so that we have, communication is just an example that I find a constant challenge in in my life, in communicating with, colleagues, family members, acknowledging what they said, giving it back to them, making sure that we actually understand what we are saying. And it's strangely hard to do. So I'm really glad that we are all starting with clarity and commonality, and then we can move forward. So I'm very excited and very impressed as well. This is not as easy as people might think. So thank you.
Any other comments, Tony?
Yeah, I have a comment. I echo everyone else's comments as well. I've been through this process before at a different agency, and I think it's really important because it provides a bit of a roadmap for employees to continually reflect back upon, on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to understand what core values are, what they mean, and how do they portray them on a daily basis. And because in the end, it's important for everyone, because anytime a supervisor or manager is evaluating the employee's performance, these are the things that they are looking at. So it builds a common ground between employees and managers and supervisors to try and build an understanding of expectations and how to exemplify core values in an organization. So it's really a useful tool. It's a lot of work, and I really do appreciate everyone's efforts. Almost 80% of the staff participating in this process is fantastic. That they want to learn more, that they want to participate, they want to be part of how to develop these behaviors is fantastic, because it really helps everyone from the general manager all the way down to the employee at staff level to develop a common model. So thanks for everyone's hard work and efforts in getting this portion of the core values kicked off. And it is a working and living document. They are working and living behaviors, and which should be revisited every so often. So hopefully we can continue this kind of collaboration as the years go on.
Great.
Yeah, I think it's an important point, Director or Vice President Laliotis, the living document. As you all know, as a board, we brought back the addition of communication. Staff felt it was very important to add communication to the core values, and that's example number one of this is a living document. And as we kind of move through this process, we can adapt.
Exactly. Any other comments? Director Harris.
Yes, the PUD employees definitely are near and dear to my heart, and it's always so good to see them participate in things. This is like one way that the board members can actually have a bit of a connection with the employees, and I appreciate the efforts that you've gone through, Jillian, to make them feel important and get their response back and to present it to us. That's always very important. So, and I look forward to hearing more about it. So, this is all HR related items, and I always like to see it. Thank you.
Great. So just a last comment on this. Remember from the very beginning of strategic planning, we talked about the importance of marrying strategy with culture. And we can spend hours on capital projects, but really it's the culture that is the bloodline and life of an organization. So really excited from afar to watch the next steps in this application. So thanks again, Jillian, for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about this. And Brian, if you could show the next slide, I want you and I to spend a little time. Go one more slide. One more slide. Sorry, we can back up, but I want to show this next slide. Okay, so I want you to have a preview of what you're going to see presented by every department head tonight, all the ELT members. And I want you to just take a moment to look at this format. And we've divided projects under each goal into capital projects and then important projects for district sustainability and reliability. And I'd really like Brian to explain to you how this format is going to be used in the future and how it's set up. And I think that's all I need to say, Brian, if you can go on and explain.
Yeah, thank you. So we're about to provide a presentation to you all on each of the operational departments' key capital projects and other projects that we tie to the strategic plan. And so the purpose here is that in the future, as staff presents projects to the board for funding or approval or updates, staff will be able to refer back to a project number or a goal number that is a quick reference and provides some additional context to why we're doing a project, what goal it fits under, what are we accomplishing in terms of our overall strategic plan. In the past, we've presented projects in terms of budget or operational need, capital need, infrastructure replacement. Moving forward, we'll be able to tie each of the projects, whether a capital project or just a larger exploratory project or some, study or assessment. We can tie each of these in our presentations to the community to a goal long-term. And we'll talk about the models in a little bit later on in this presentation, but for the purposes of what staff's about to present to you, this is the beginning. And we talked about the marrying behaviors to values being a living document. This will be as well. The strategic plan, the goals, the long-term goals of the district set by the board will, presumably be adopted on May 19th, but staff will continue to tie projects and studies and initiatives under each of these goals for the board's reference and the community's reference. So if there is at some point a question as to why, I'll steal one of Joe Horvath's projects, why the district is pursuing a Martis Valley substation rebuild, we can say, okay, it's managing for financial stability and resiliency. Look at the strategic plan and what that really means, and really have a better understanding, a little bit more transparency to understand why each of these projects are being funded, where they're being funded from, what revenue source it's being drawn from, and what the long-term goals are. So this, for the purposes of this afternoon, is a high-level overview. There's not a lot of detail in this particular presentation, but as staff presents the final strategic plan and begins to present these projects to the public, the community, and the board, you'll see the relationship here. And so we'll be able to quickly to draw reference and context to these things. We're pretty excited about this. This is one of the fundamental kind of goals or drivers behind a larger strategic plan, is to really have a navigating document moving forward. And this is at the core of that. So without further ado,
Hold on 1 minute, Brian. I want to add one more thing.
Sure.
So for the board, what's really interesting with an executive leadership team, first of all, these are the first goals you've all set. Then cognitively, for each person to go through and think about where they're going to put capital projects nesting under what goal. Because oftentimes a project could fit under several goals. That intellectual process and sharing with one another is a major strategy for you and for staff to really think through. And so it's not just that each of these ELT members with their departments, many of them met with their departments and had discussions. So each of these should roll up into the goal to make sure that each of these 5 goals live on, that they're just not words. So for environmental stewardship, what are we doing to really achieve that? What can we talk about? And for boards, what I want to tell you is this living document that will change and be updated. Let's say you're going to be talking to a community group. This is an amazing document for you to pull up and just refresh yourself. Projects that you can refer to that the district's doing for our community. And with our community. So living, breathing, but it serves many purposes moving forward. So as Brian said, Brian, anything else?
Yeah, one additional, just for the kind of put context for this evening's presentation, this list is not exhaustive. It's a high-level example, kind of the big projects coming up over the next couple of years. And some of you that have a little bit more background on some of these projects, you may have seen them in workshops or presentations in the past. They may or may not be completely funded at this moment. We're about ready to enter, I'll remind you, enter into a budget cycle for 2022 to 2023. And so during our budget presentations, you'll see some of these projects that haven't been fully funded. In the strategic plan, that will be also identified and noted of, the funding streams or the need to fund. So this is a high-level overview as staff goes through these.
And what we'd like, unless it's absolutely necessary, if we could listen, unless there's a big question, really want you to ask questions if it's necessary. But we really want to get to the interactive part of the workshop tonight, which really focuses on our task force meetings, where you're going to be able to talk with one another and not be hurried, not be rushed. But anything you see that you want further clarification on, please ask that department head. And with that, Mr. Horvath, where are you?
Right here. Well, good evening, President Finn, Vice President Laliotis, members of the board. Really excited to talk about our capital projects, or all the projects that we're having under these different goals. I'll start with goal number 1, managing for financial stability and resiliency. As you can see, the capital projects listed here, there are 3 of them are substations. And by the way, number 4 is number 8 under that different section. So I apologize for the typo there. So our capital projects, 3 of them are substations. And of course, when thinking of an electric system, the substations are really the heart of our electric system. If I extend the circulatory analogy, things like feeders and reclosers, which I'll talk about, they're more like the veins and arteries supplying the much needed nourishment out to our system, in this case, electricity. And these substation rebuilds, we really need to refresh and rebuild our substations after a number of years. So it's sort of no surprise that they show up here. In addition, there's an operations building on this list. And one of the reasons we're proposing this is, of course, the district has had an increasing need to store some of the materials we've traditionally stored outside of the district, things like transformers and cable reels of underground wire and overhead wire. They're exposed out in the snow and the elements. Those really need to come inside a building to be protected, along with the investment we've made in some very expensive vehicles and this building would allow that. We'll more on that later. And then some important projects for our sustainability and reliability include poles across our district. Our district is about 60% overhead and 40% underground. And we have a responsibility to take care of those poles, to replace them. So that's something we've been doing annually since I've been here. And in fact, it goes on every year at a utility. And then replacing reclosers, or rebuilding portions of feeders. That's really a key component to keeping that lifeblood going out, our electricity going out in a reliable and sustainable manner.
Joe, if I could interrupt you a minute, I am remiss in telling staff we have 7 presentations. Everyone has 8 minutes, and I'll let you know when there's 2 minutes left.
Okay. Well, I'll sorry.
Sorry, Joe.
I'm long-winded here.
No, it's not you. There's so many exciting things to talk about, but it's a lot for 7 presentations. So,
point taken. And let me just piggyback. I forget who said if it was a director or if it was Brian, but many of these projects could fit under different goals, and you can kind of see that as we go through it. Going into the next goal, environmental stewardship, energy limiting fuses. This is replacing the expulsion fuses, the fuses that when they operate, they explode essentially, and they have the capability of starting fires. Those fuses have been around for 80, 90 years. We're replacing them with completely encapsulated fuses. These are very safe. So it fits under this environmental stewardship category because we're trying to mitigate the threat of wildfire. Another item is buying transformers with, believe it or not, vegetable oil instead of petroleum. They've been doing this for many years now, and the district has been doing this for many years. And of course, our continued investment in our energy portfolio. This doesn't fit into a capital project per se, but it's because it's paid for out of a different method. It's not a capital expenditure. But of course, we're meeting and exceeding the state requirements for 60% RPS and 40% carbon free. And then local clean power generation, just to, as a reminder, Stampede Dam is our local clean power generation. That contract is coming up for renewal in a couple of years. And then our own vegetation management plan or vegetation management activities that we do every year, which is an important part of our environmental stewardship around the district. Next slide, please. Engage with our customers and communities in a welcoming and transparent way. One capital project that I believe this is a good fit here. This is talking about our own district office building upgrade. One of the points that the architect made was that this new upgrade to our building will give a opening and welcoming view, and when we start opening up our building again for people to come in to board meetings and other things, this is really a welcoming thing for the community. I think this is an important part of how we would engage with our community is our own building. And of course, we have things that the board is familiar with. We do Big Truck Day, which is a wonderful project that the town puts on that we have been a part of for many years. And of course, our own Learn and Burn community education program for electric safety. Goal number 4, take the best of private sector thinking and to modernize our utility. I think the SCADA reliability projects that we've been doing since 2011 neatly fit in this category. We're taking the next generation communication system, the fiber optic cables, which will serve us well for decades to come, out to all our facilities so that we can communicate with SCADA, that we can increase our security at our facilities. This is a really important initiative. And then, of course, the undergrounding, this proposed initiative, the board initiative. And then some important projects that fit under this goal would be, there's increasingly utilities are starting to employ drones with their systems to do reconnaissance of their field facilities. Especially, we believe that the drone technology could help us to review our facilities and look for things like that are not easily spotted from the ground, things like failed insulators or broken connections, things where an up close picture would be valuable. So we're not by any means leading the charge here. Many utilities have already adopted this, but we hope to employ this for the good of our district. And then lastly, next slide, would be developing an inclusive culture, this goal 5. One of the things that I have done, perhaps sporadically, but in the past, but I believe this has been very valuable, is to conduct annual workshops in a collaborative way with our sister power utilities, our neighboring power utilities, to build communication, collaborative interests. All these relationships are very valuable, especially from a standpoint of from time to time we need mutual aid during storms and other emergencies. So these relationships that we develop with our neighboring utilities are very valuable. In addition, there are times where we need a component, a part, something that a material item that we don't have in stock. Time and time again, we've reached out to our sister and neighboring utilities, and we've been able to find things that have been very hard to find or very long lead time. So these relationships, I believe, are invaluable, and this would be a way to further cement those and keep those going. And of course, professional development plans for utility staff, managers, supervisors, others. And then something we did right before COVID, and since COVID, we have not done it, but 2 years ago, we sent our first group of linemen to the American Public Power Association Lineman Rodeo. This is a national event. This event really facilitates leadership, team building. This is an amazing event for linemen to get together, to collaborate and to build their leadership skills. And this is something we could send a rotating group of different linemen every year. So this is what we would propose to continue to build those wonderful, improve leadership skills and improve culture. So that's a quick view. I think I went through it very quickly.
7 minutes. Perfect, Joe. Awesome. It was really wonderful. Okay. Moving on to water, unless there are any questions. Okay, I know there will be questions later. And remember, this is, operations, what's going to happen in operations, but many of these projects you'll hear and have been hearing about. Brian.
Thank you. I'll go relatively quickly through this because I think you're seeing the kind of the format and the structure here. For the water utility, managing for financial stability and resiliency is really a couple of key pillars for this is infrastructure reliability and, our our infrastructure management. So the capital projects are relatively straightforward. We've introduced over the past couple of years a couple of long-term projects this district is really interested in accomplishing. We've included these in our capital improvement plan that helped drive our rate structure and the updated rate structure last year. And so the Pioneer Trail, the Tahoe Donner Pipeline is a key project to help the resiliency and stability of our system. That will also include additional storage capacity at 6170 and a pump station. So this is really about redundancy to a key sector of our service area. Annual pipeline replacement projects will continue. We're getting increasing pressure from the regulatory bodies on water loss reduction. The performance standards are becoming more and more strict, and we really need to continue the annual pipeline replacement projects to help reduce water loss and replace some of the aging infrastructure that ultimately will fail at the end of its life cycle. We have a couple of key other facilities we need to replace that are approaching the end of their life cycle. Northside Well over in the Old Town, downtown area. And we also need to continue. We have 32 tanks in our system. That's a pretty significant number for the compared to the miles of pipe and number of customers we have in our system. Utilities of our size that aren't in the mountainous area have far less storage tanks. And so one of the things we really need to begin to invest in moving forward is the maintenance and rehabilitation projects. It takes quite a bit of time to get these done. You can't do 32 in a year. We can pick out a few each year, but we really need to keep that cycle going. And then you're all familiar with the metering. That's part of the water loss reduction. Other projects that we know are coming on the horizon: meter testing. This is a regulatory component, water loss performance standards, and really getting into predictive maintenance. Our pumping facilities are approaching that 40-year cycle where we really need to start looking at how we rotate some of these facilities out. It's goal number 2, environmental stewardship. This is a big topic here locally, and it's important. It's important to everyone here at the district. A couple of things that we plan on working on over the next couple of budget cycles is water pump efficiency assessments. This is really trying to create more efficiency in the energy usage for pumping water to our customers. And then always water quality monitoring is critical. We have been blessed with a cold, clean water supply here in this basin, but we need to continue to monitor that and preserve it. Other projects the district presented to this board, our intent to enter into greenhouse gas inventories and reduction programs with the water utility. This is something we do as an electric utility in terms of our energy imports, but in terms of really establishing what our greenhouse gas and carbon footprint is as a water utility, and how do we set that baseline to improve it moving forward. And then we presented earlier last fall the Martis Valley Groundwater Basin Management. Mr. Poncelet, our PIO in Strategic Affairs, works tirelessly with our partner agencies in North Star Community Services District and Placer County Water to help, as a group, collectively manage our basin and that great water we have. Engaging with our customers in a welcoming and transparent way. One of the key ways we do this is our consumer confidence reports. It's important that we report on an annual basis to our customers what we're delivering, some of the challenges we might have or don't have as a water utility and potable water service provider. We would like to continue with stakeholder workshops and education on topics such as the groundwater basin, water quality, water production. That's a really important. We know that many of our questions and concerns come out of just really wanting some more education there. And I think that's a key customer engagement tool. Take the best of private sector thinking. I'm going to piggyback on what Joe Horvath just talked about. SCADA, specifically on this particular slide, water SCADA. Water SCADA replacement project has been going on for several years now. We're approaching the end of that project, but like all technologies, it's kind of like, the analogy of painting the Golden Gate Bridge. Once you get to one end, you start over and go the other direction. And with technologies, that's kind of the same thing. And we're looking to always identify opportunities to continue to improve that system. And then looking for other technologies such as leak detection systems. Joe talked about drones. Something that's on the water side is maybe utilizing some of the satellite technologies that are emerging for assessment of leaks. And finally, goal number 5 for the water department, developing an inclusive culture drives organizational integration and success, including, COVID has put a damper on some of our ability to engage staff at all levels with some of our JPAs, some of the training, some of the workshops. In each of our operational departments, it's really critical that staff has an opportunity to engage with representatives from other agencies, new emerging technologies, new ways of doing things. It's part of that communication as an industry. So we're looking forward to re-engaging with some of the American Water Works Association. We're a relatively new member of AQUA that was driven by our need for insurance provisions, but there's a lot of resources there that we haven't, as a district, really tapped into. I know some of our neighboring agencies, Vice President Laliotis has some experience with AQUA, and we're looking forward to that. That's the water goals.
Well done, Brian. Any questions? Okay, moving on to Mr. Finance and Admin, Michael Salmon.
Thank you, Pam. Good evening, President Finn and members of the board. So from a finance administration services, we certainly have a lot of low-grade projects in the works. One of the higher level ones of importance for us is upgrading our call system. Feel like we're stuck in about 1975, maybe 1980 with our call system. So we'd like to get call recording and have a more robust call metrics information system for our customer service needs. Re-engineering the work order workflow is near and dear on the near-term horizon for us. It was identified last year in the financial statement audit, and it will be identified this year in their report out for 2020 audit as well. So we're anxious to tackle that here in the next few months. Moving customer service to the next level, we did in 2020, we did customer service 2.0, and we're shifting gears to take it to 3.0 level to measure in part related to improving our call system metrics, and call recording kind of dovetails into that. As part of the financial planning cycle, it's dovetailed with the strategic plan, doing an in-depth debt analysis and potential for debt issuances will be happening this fall to particularly analyze the potential pension obligation bonds and what that means to the district long-term financially. And then, of course, as we all know, the water utility has a 10-year capital improvement plan in excess of $7 million per year on average, and a good part of that can be funded via rates, as we discussed, but there's potential for adding some debt as the existing debt comes off. We have a few portions of debt retiring over the next couple of years. So dovetailing that into the budget process this fall is important. And let's see, specific in the finance world, as soon as we wrap up this audit, which is real close, where the draft financial statements are with the auditors now, that'll be next month presented to the board. Dovetailing right after that, we'll take the audit report and roll that into a comprehensive financial report and popular financial report for distribution to the community. So look forward to doing that project. And local education and recruitment, internships and seasonality, that's a good opportunity for us that's been undertapped, underutilized in the recent past. And then continuing our relationship with the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency to help address the workforce housing issues we have here in the community. ERP is a short, ERP system is a very small word, but it's a very massive project. So We have a legacy system here called NISC that we're in the process of evaluating whether it has matured enough to where we just need to embrace that product more, or whether we need to bail on NISC and potentially tackle a much more robust, more modern, more current ERP system for the district as a whole. That's a massive project, so that's something that will take some time to assess, and we'll be briefing the board as we get into that project. The outage management system is actively being looked at right now. Right now, the current outage management system we have is not, it's kind of a standalone system that has a few bolt-ons, a few connections, but not nearly as integrated as what NISC now provides, a fully integrated outage management product. So we're looking at that near term. Let's see. As far as sustainability and reliability, the HR networking and partnerships to leverage private sector resources, and continued development of the online service applications, which is integrated with our NISC and customer service software. Those are a few of the things we're thinking about strategically.
Thanks, Mike. Just as a case in point, goal number 5 falls heavily into the human resources world, which Jillian will present a little bit later on.
Great. Any questions? Thanks, Mike. Now we go to information technology.
Yeah, so for IT, information technology, again, I'll go over this relatively quickly, but feel free to stop us with some questions or clarification. Manage for financial stability and resiliency, some big capital projects over the next 3 to 4 years. SCADA reliability, as Joe mentioned, is an important part, and it ties directly into what we'll discuss later on in this presentation with the initiative of community broadband. So this is really a multifaceted project that provides communication reliability for the district itself, but also the community. So we're looking forward to that. We're exploring the opportunity to procure an integrated CMMS software system. This is really a combination of asset inventory management and dovetails in with what Mike's working on in administrative services with NISC and all of the other compatible systems. And then I spoke about the water SCADA system. IT's working on, kind of that analogy again of once you paint the Golden Gate Bridge, turning around and painting it again. We're ending the life cycle of our radios, and we really need to identify a feasible replacement. So that's a project we will be presenting to the board likely at the end of this summer. Enhanced integration of NISC, as Mike touched on, and continuing to work on network system maintenance and upgrades. This is a never-ending project in terms of IT, always having not on the leading edge of software upgrades, but really that second tier where things have been proven, where the district's not the beta test, but we're definitely up to date and working on all cylinders. Environmental stewardship, that's kind of a tough one to tie in for IT, but what we really see here is looking for opportunities for local and regional partnerships to maximize the utility of our current infrastructure. The community broadband is one of them. Our vegetation management with some of our cameras or other technologies we have, integrating what we have in place with some of ourselves and our partners in the region. And then continuing to build on our GIS applications. The district was on the forefront of utilizing LiDAR imaging, and then GIS really has a lot of opportunities that we could probably partner with our local community agencies. Take the best of private sector thinking. That's probably a fundamental principle of IT to begin with. So it's really about monitoring, tracking emerging technologies to enhance all of our operations, whether it be administrative services, engineering, actual operations, or communication. This is really a fundamental principle of information technology and our team here with the district. Next, we have Shauna Kuhlmeyer to present some of the projects with the district clerk and general manager's office. Shauna.
Good evening. Thank you. Financial resiliency
Shauna, it's really
Laserfish software program.
Shauna, it's really hard to hear you. You're very.
Is that better?
Yes.
Is that better? Okay.
Yes.
So the financial stability and resiliency, the integration of the Laserfish software program will really touch on a lot of the goals for the district, but it will enhance, obviously, the financial side of pulling records and, making them more electronically. Pursuing grant opportunities will be looked at annually on a case-by-case basis, and exploring property tax initiative for the district's key initiatives. There's new out there that will
Shauna,
a lot of diving into
Shauna,
and a lot of.
Shauna, we're losing you again.
Yes.
It's hard to hear you.
I don't know why. Is that better?
Keep talking.
Pam, is that better?
Yeah,
okay.
Maybe.
How about now?
Try it.
I think my internet connection is a little off.
Okay, that sounded better.
Okay, perfect. So under
Brian,
I think goal 2 is where we were at.
Yeah, we were at goal 2.
We will continue the district's efforts in partnering with the community to advance a volunteer and give back program with an emphasis around environmental resiliency and stewardship. We had great last fall. We look forward to what our next program will be this year. On to goal 3. Analyze and implement Laserfish capabilities savings measures. Laserfish is a robust program, can integrate
Shauna,
when he chooses to look
Shauna,
at
this is Pam. Shauna, if you shut off your video, I think that might help.
Okay, we'll try that. If not, we'll let Brian take it over.
That's much better.
Wonderful. And so I think I'm going to move on to number 2, create a strong community engagement through the website and social media. Really meeting the demands of our communities while keeping our transparency of excellence and building upon it. Goal number 5, developing an inclusive culture drives organizational integration. Ensure the general manager's department, the district clerk, the board are aligned with district council, and really creating that inclusive culture. Support continued education for professional staff, and support and participate in cross-departmental projects to ensure interest-based projects are successful. And I think that will wrap it up for us.
Okay. Any questions?
That was much better. I think the bandwidth was getting a little full.
Yes, sir.
Video. So, Shauna, that last part was crystal clear. Thank you.
Yeah, that worked much better with the video off. Okay, now we go to public information and strategic affairs to Stephen.
All right. Good evening, President Finn and members of the board. It's my pleasure to present the Public Information and Strategic Affairs Department. It's a short list and not a lot of capital, but it's a heavy lift and, critical to the future of the department. So on managing for financial stability and resiliency, one of the major, functions of L&R is to understand the implication of legislation and regulation on our operations and ultimately finances. And we have some huge unfunded mandates we're addressing today and many more on the future. And so it's really, where does that unique story of Truckee that we can tell that gains traction in Sacramento, in DC, and we can help our sister utilities, our sister communities to inform policy in a way that helps them meet their objectives, but doesn't harm our community. And I'd like to say it brings money in, but it pretty much avoids having to pay for it. On environmental stewardship, Brian talked about the multi-agency collaboration around groundwater management in the basin, and that's a huge opportunity for us. We don't control a lot in terms of environmental mandates. They tend to come to us from Sacramento, from DC again, but this board, the Board of North Star Community Services District, the PCWA, have environmental stewardship responsibility for the Martis Valley, which is a tremendous resource and asset, which is why we've played such a leadership role, because it's so important. And then TROA is one we're active, but again, we can't control that. So our work in the Martis Valley has been super collaborative, super successful. And I will end with, save this community millions of dollars when we got out from under the Sigma legislation, which was a great community story. So next slide, please. On engage with our customers and communities and welcome in a transparent way, communication keeps rising up. And we've had, this is kind of a traditional, innovative, visionary story. We've had some great successes in the past. And the Probolsky research really showed that our customers had a good relationship with us, trusted us, and were fairly well informed. But we've had some successes in the digital engagement world and moving into some different areas with some community outreach. And how do we match our organizational structure and our budget to our desire to seize those opportunities? For number 4, best of public sector thinking, the customer survey and utility benchmarking provided great insight and feedback and kind of a quick close of the loop between innovation and feedback, so that before you innovate too far, you're getting the feedback and really shortening that. And I think there's an opportunity for this district to formalize it, keep it going, and it only strengthens our relationship with the people we're trying to serve, our sisters in the utility, and our community fellows that we share this wonderful place with. And then on the last goal, it's really about matching external and internal communications. There's a clear desire for that, and culture comes with mutual understanding and communications. It's a big part of it. And so how do we do that in an effective way? And how do we make people understand the why? Why are we doing what we do? Why did the last 5 departments present those projects instead of other projects? And what benefit are we creating for the community? And then what opportunity do they have to participate? So I'll end with that.
Thanks, Stephen.
That was great. Questions? Jillian, Human Resources.
Thank you. So this is specifically the kind of ambition, plans, and goals for goal number 5 and how it relates to HR directly. So specifically, these are the projects we have in plan for staff professional development and engagement. You'll notice the first 3 are kind of in progress already, or we've already started to work through them. So being staff workshops to identify and enrich workplace culture. We've already had several of those and will continue to do so, as previously mentioned on the first portion, that this is kind of living, breathing documents and need to be revisited. So those will continue, especially as we're building upon it. Identify and connect behaviors to values, which we presented today. And then just today, I sent out an email in regards to a culture club or a volunteer committee, fun committee. We don't have a name just yet for it, but it'll be a group of volunteers who come together to build engagement and work together to come up with community projects, fun events, activities, and just stay connected to the vibe and the culture here at the district. And so just today I sent out that email to finalize our kind of regular members of the committee. It'll also be open for anyone to just pop in if they can't attend every meeting, but want to just participate in a specific one. It'll be open to all employees for that as well. So excited to get that launched and going here, and the fun and cool opportunities that are come from that.
Jillian, if I could interrupt, we first heard about culture clubs from Vice President Laliotis. And Tony, can you update us, since it's a workshop? How's your culture club over there? It's been in place now for quite some time.
First of all, that's a proprietary label, so
I used it at previous employers too.
I'm kidding. We may let you use it. No.
We don't have a name yet.
No, I appreciate the shout out. No, I think it's such a great idea because it's so important, and I think it goes back to my comment earlier about values and being, the core values being a living and breathing document and philosophy. And so in Tahoe City, the Culture Club is, sort of behind that on, behind the scenes, sort of working on that every day or every week or every month, how often they meet, developing, ideas, thoughts, processes, reviewing things, doing fun things for the employees, creating fun work environments. All of those things work together in establishing, in keeping core values real and culture at the forefront of your work life, as well as lessons you can use at home as well. So really important.
So see, Jillian, you have a cheerleader here who lives it over there.
That's great. Continuing on, developing a comprehensive and inclusive new hire onboarding and orientation program. I've already taken some steps in trying to identify the needs here and what we can do better to bring on our new hires, and put some things in action already, and still need some more tweaking, so that'll be continuing to evolve and expand. Connect district values to performance goals with a focus on development. So this is in progress. We've already added them to evaluations this year, and then we'll continue to do this moving forward. Create and champion a recognition program that aligns with staff development goals and core values. We have some stuff in place, but I think especially that we have behaviors tied to the core values, we'll really be able to expand upon this. And my role in HR is really champion that and make sure the consistency is there. And I think the Culture Club will also help with this as well. Facilitate cross-departmental engagement to identify staff development opportunities. This came out in a survey done previously that this was something that our team really enjoys and wants to do more of, but also really want to make sure that they have a value add and they, serve a purpose. So really evaluating how we can make those opportunities happen and make sure that they have a value add. Develop standard operating procedures and kind of an employee toolkit, especially out of HR. There's much that comes out of an HR office that pertains to all employees. And I think it's nice to have kind of a one-stop shop where everyone can find that information, or managers have their toolkit where they can help answer questions. It allows employees and managers to feel empowered. We all wear an HR hat at some point, and this allows some consistency and and support around that. And then establish a leadership academy to help kind of implement educational and personal development goals. This will allow us to have some resources to help support that, but also some consistency in the leadership skills and values. And again, aligning that with our core values. If we establish that here and have opportunities for everyone to attend similar and consistent training opportunities. And that's the plan so far.
Thank you, Jillian. So I know culture is near and dear to the board's heart, and I knew you'd be excited to see what's already underway. Jillian, you've done so much, and the dreams of Brian and Jillian and the ELT moving forward. I thought President Finn or directors, you may have a comment on this.
I do. I'm incredibly impressed. You've been very busy. And I think it is, again, we've pounded on this for almost 2 years now, the importance of culture and developing our values and developing our people. Like we realize that it's the people that make the district, and that is the most important investment that we can make in time and money. So I think it's it's exciting. These are exciting things. It sounds like fun. I want to work there. So thank you. It looks exciting.
Any other comments?
Yes, very, very impressive. So all of the presentations tonight, and then it's nice to cap off with human resources. This is where it happens, because it's the people who make it happen. The culture to behavior to actions, and actions speak louder than words, but we can fulfill our culture of this district. And these 9 things here really just, I feel, nail it to help and give staff the support they need to accomplish big things. So thank you.
Great. Any other comments? Joe, I think you're trying to talk, but you're on mute. You're not alone. Most of us do that. You're still on mute, Joe. There you go.
Okay, now I'm okay.
Yes.
No, what I was noticing through all these goals and things, especially Brian and Joe and Steve and Mike, that these things, these 5 goals that we have, are kind of a routine, everyday work of the staff and crew. But now we're bringing them right to the head of the things, because I think that these are the most important that we have to work on, and we've come and narrowed them down to what it's all about. And I think that we're on the right track, and this is good. So I think that when this plan starts, there's going to be the big project. I mean, we'll hit them where that needs it the most, and it's not just a routine maintenance matter. It'll be a fix-it for the future and for the last many years. And I think that we'll save some money doing this and a lot of time. I'm glad we're hitting on these goals. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Director Harris?
Yes, as you all know, HR is also near and dear to my heart. It's a lot there. And then there's the stuff that's not mentioned there that I'm sure that HR does, and trying, with safety, there's the back end of the workers' comp, and then there's the policies and ensuring the policies and district code are, as well as the union contract is implemented as part of these values in a consistent and fair manner. So definitely HR has, I'm happy to see an HR person in here. And good luck to you, because it's definitely a big undertaking.
Thank you. Vice President Laliotis, final thoughts on culture, human resources?
No, I just kind of what, like Joe said, this is bringing things really to the forefront of what we do every day, and giving staff the ability to have a roadmap to proof that their workload or what projects they're working on are relevant and meaningful and goal-oriented, because we've established those goals. So appreciate everyone's hard work and really collaborating amongst all the departments in the organization to bring together very different, but this is the glue that puts them all together. Very different, needs based on the department, but ultimately wrapping around the same goals within the organization. So good job.
I'd just like to go back at the end and thank you, Brian, for your leadership, and a shout out to Joe, Mike, Shauna, Stephen, Jillian, Trey, all departments, because this is a new way of thinking. And Joe Aguera, as you said, and Tony, it does improve efficiencies. when you see things and it's in front of you and your staff, it stays front of mind. Now, don't forget, all of these are, or almost all of these are on Monday.com. So then all the detail, and Brian, why don't you talk about that? Why don't you talk about your dream of how you want to marry these?
Yeah, so each of the projects we've gone over, as we mentioned, these are high level overview, not exhaustive, but just kind of the big hits here on our projects over the next couple of years. But as we begin to present these to the board for approval and status updates, they'll be incorporated in Monday.com in our board of directors dashboard, so that we can have an easy, quick, high-level overview, answer questions, give, kind of illustrate the progress of each of these as we go month to month, quarter to quarter, and year to year. It will help the board make a more informed decision with kind of real-time data, and then the budget process that Mike Salmon and his staff are working on will be built into this as well. So there'll be an easy flow connection, much more intuitive, and really have an elevated sense of transparency. We tend to speak on a lot of things in our presentations. Now we'll have the illustrations, the presentations, the documents that we can provide to the community and you as board members for your decision-making process. So definitely an enhanced flow of information here.
Okay, and I just got a message, I think you all did, from Director Harris. She's having internet issues, but she'll rejoin as quickly as possible. President Finn, what if we take a break?
I was going to suggest exactly that. If this is a nice natural break point, let's all take a 10 minutes, little bio break and be back. Is that suit?
That sounds perfect, and hopefully Director Harris can get back on her internet then too.
Very good.
Could you let her know that, Pam, that we're going to take a 10-minute break?
Yes.
That'd be good. Thanks.
Yes.
So we'll see you.
She says she can hear us. It's
Okay.
just the video when she gets a better connection. So, yes, Director Harris can hear us. So 10-minute break.
37.
What time, Krista?
5:47 to be exact.
Okay. 5:47.
37.
37. Got it.
I'm going to
Oh, we're not done yet, Joe. There's a lot more goodies to come.
I know, but you know what? We have a lot. We learned a lot right now. So
I'm so glad. Good. Yeah. Thank you, Joe.
It's like I said earlier, it's a lot routine, and then we do work on these things, but this will be a big push, like for these substations and that kind of stuff. Our yard building.
Yeah.
For equipment and all that. I mean, we have a plan now. We have a push, go.
Yeah.
So that's the best part.
Jeff, you just need that for your engineering team.
Yes.
That little document.
Absolutely. Culture to behavior to action.
Yes.
And I love seeing the HR wrapping it, tying it all together, because it's all about the people. So that was done on purpose, I know. So thank you. That was it had its effect to see that tying in all the departments.
Well, I'm so happy you got to meet Jillian. She's just amazing, and over all the months she's been here, she's just really delivering at a big high level.
And one of the good parts we just went by was the 78% staff involvement with our.
Yeah.
Voluntary.
That is big.
All voluntary.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. I know we're not back in session yet, so we're still continuing as a best PUD in the state of California, I think.
Director Harris, is all good with your video?
Yeah, if I find that I'm having internet issues, I'll just turn my video off, but I'm still listening in.
Okay. Let's hope we can see you, though.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying.
I know. Thank you for trying. And thank you for typing and letting us know. That's great.
Absolutely. I don't know who, it says all panelists, so everybody should be able to see that.
Yeah. Okay, President Finn, are we ready to launch?
Yes, I believe we are. I think we're all back. So, yeah, let's continue where we left off, which I think.
Okay, Brian.
Okay, excuse me. So we ended with the last of the departmental projects tied and nested under each of the goals. And I don't know if there's any more questions or comments on this in this kind of segment of our presentation, but I can move on to the next topic here.
Yeah, we're going to move on to initiatives and review goals. So here's a big part of what has been accomplished. So next slide, Brian, if we could. Just wanted to remind you and remember this is focused on implementation. These initiatives are always board initiated. So every year or more often, you're going to look at these initiatives. And what often happens as you're working with the community is as we discuss your roles tonight, and we're just, truly brainstorming, not making any decisions, of course, because these aren't even adopted. But as you think in the future, your participation with community people, I know you've already talked about that the district's role might change. Another agency might lead it or the town. And know that you'll continue to update these initiatives as you move forward. And you might be, now that you're perceived as leaders in the community doing this, that other people will come to you and say, we'd love it if you would facilitate XYZ or participate, partner with us. And remember that these usually don't have budget or revenue streams. So it's extremely important, and I know Mike's going to keep you on target on this, but always include the revenue streams as you move forward. And remember that capital projects are ongoing, multiple year, usually projects, and they are included in the budget. So that's the main differentiator to remember moving forward. Brian, anything else on that? Those two concepts?
No, I think you've covered it well, and I think we're ready to go to the next slide where you can start to introduce the initiatives.
Great. Okay, I just wanted us to remember our first meeting where we were at the Cedar House, and you as a board brainstormed the strategic levers underpinning the landscape. And remember, establishing strategic levers, we had done work first with talking about what are traditional things that we want to keep and maintain, what are innovative things we're excited about innovating, and then what are those true no-box thinking visionary ideas. The no-box thinking is where the innovative thinking is where you really solidified not only the goals, but then we use sticky notes. And here were the initiatives. So I want to, I know we know all the initiatives, but I want just to remind us what goals these initiatives are nested under so we can remind the task forces of this too and the community. So undergrounding of overhead power lines is taking the best of private sector thinking to modernize the utility and add value to our communities. And Joe had this exact same thing when he described this under his project, with his projects. Then high-speed broadband was nested under Goal 1, manage for financial stability and resiliency. You might want to change that. You know, that might not be the best place for it. So the reason I'm using that as an example is these should be flexible. And you should say this has moved from one goal to another. That's a very strategic thing to do and realistic thing to do. Then 100% clean, renewable, and clean power generation. We have under environmental stewardship, create a sustainable, resilient environment for all our communities. It's not uncommon for boards to have just 2 goals or 3 goals that have initiatives nested under them. Don't worry about if you're covering all 5 of your goals. I want to repeat that. Don't worry and think that you have to have initiatives under all 5 goals. What's most important is they're your initiatives and that they're relevant. They're relevant to this district and to our community. That's the most important thing. And remember, the goals are numbered, but they're equal in weight. It just makes it easier to refer to them. Okay, comments on that? Questions? Okay, moving on then, Brian. So we've initiated general manager task forces. Next slide. Each of you have taken time to participate as a board, and our goal was to establish these task forces and that the task forces would do their very best at identifying project scopes and goals for tonight's meeting. That has been accomplished, by the way. Yay. That's awesome, amazing. Think about this. What's it been, Brian? 6 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe a month, right?
Yeah, we're about a month.
So think about the implementation. And most government agencies don't move quickly. And so to have identified your initiatives, to have them prioritized with our tasks, with our focus groups, and then to identify task forces and to actually meet 2 to 3 times in a month. Wow. So there's a genuine excitement of taking these board initiatives and moving into action. And for each of you serving on these task forces, my background and experience here is it creates expectations, doesn't it, of the people who have participated. And sometimes those expectations are in alignment and sometimes they're not. And that's really a good thing because that's just human nature and that's our community. So we're going to get an update and I want to tell you more about how we're going to do that. Next slide, Brian. So tonight, Stephen, Joe, and Brian are going to present the overview of the meetings. In other words, the updates. And then for each of you board members who have participated, we would like your observations on top of staff of just the meetings, not talking about anything about the future, just what you observed happening at those meetings. And then we would like for you to lead your colleagues in a discussion. Remember, these are board initiatives. So as you think about your task force meetings, what do you want to get your colleagues' input on? What were some concerns that were expressed that you'd like to discuss as a board? In other words, you want to have robust discussions so that you know where this board stands on each initiative. And then we just want to talk about options of board roles moving forward. What should the board role be with these initiatives, do you think? And again, we're not giving any directions. These haven't been adopted until May, but this will help you for the June meeting because we don't want these initiatives to stall out and the people that are enthusiastic to think we haven't been following through. Okay, so, and then last discussion on each initiative is what would be our key next steps, do you think, in June? Okay, so we'll be having this discussion with each initiative, and what Brian and I brainstormed, once the presentations have been given and the discussions with the board by Stephen, Joe, and Brian, and each of you on your task forces, for that discussion portion, Brian's going to stop sharing the screen so that each board member who has participated can facilitate and see everybody's face. It's just too impossible with the screen up. So I know President Finn, you mentioned that last time, and I want to make sure we all see each other's faces during this discussion. Okay, let's start with, I believe we start with undergrounding.
Yes, our first initiative is the undergrounding of overhead power lines. We have Stephen Poncelet to give the task force meeting recap.
And we have Vice President Laliotis and Director Harris. Thank you so much for participating in these. Okay, Stephen.
All right. Good evening, President Finnegan and members of the board. My pleasure to present this summary and then turn over the discussion on undergrounding of overhead power lines, goal number 1. And it does say community priority down there. It did get 82%, I believe. So one that had a lot of interest and traction from the community. We had a great task force, including Vice President Laliotis and Director Harris. Thank you again. Dan Wilkins from the town of Truckee, Chief Celine from Truckee Fire, We had Annie Rosenfeld from Tahoe Donner Association, which really represents, a big player in both the undergrounding and kind of community side. Sana Schlosser from staff did a great job really lending her expertise to the discussion because it's a technical one. And then myself as facilitator. The meeting dates were listed there, and we used the hour and a half just about fully on everyone. I think I might have gone over once. Apologies. And the key discussion points, and they're all pretty rich, but a need to further frame the scope of the initiative in the context of understanding the impacts of undergrounding and alternatives. Because when people started talking about undergrounding and we said, why? It could be fire, or it could be, I don't like looking at them, or it could be, the outages are too dangerous, or they hurt my business. And so understanding the why of it, and then what are the benefits of undergrounding versus versus overhead, but then what other alternatives are there to address issues like public safety and reliability. The second one was continue to define and validate the problem statement, benefits and costs, and process to desired end, which is a nice way of saying what I just did is, what are we trying to do here? And what do we know now? What are the gaps? What are the perceived costs and benefits? And, how do we understand? And then opportunity to engage with community and collaborate with partners, stakeholders, and funders. And that one's going to show up, I believe, a lot in that it's bigger than just the PUD. As soon as we start talking about public safety or community resiliency or bigger issues, then the layer of players kind of broadens out. Next slide, please. So, a great team, and we really came, to this in the first meeting, and we refined it, but, it was really good to gel around it because then we got to talk about it a bit. But the initial project scope was pursue opportunities, including undergrounding of overhead electric power lines for TDPUD to improve public safety, electric system reliability, and aesthetics. And I talked a little about public safety and electric system reliability. There's a part of the community that doesn't want to look at it. And for downtown corridors and, poles and wires where people are walking or riding bikes, there's benefits not to have them. So aesthetics comes in there into one of the three things that it really, what are we trying to solve here? And then the goals established for the 3 to 6 month, going forward of the task force, should the board move forward, was to identify key steps to define the initiative scope, initial timelines, and estimated costs. And this is a big one. You're not going to know it all in 3 to 6 months, but you could understand the scope of what do I need to budget moving forward to know it all, for example. And then how would they do that, the task force? Public outreach, education, and input. And this was a big one. There was a desire from the beginning to go back and understand, what do you want us to solve by undergrounding? What is the problem? And, what are the alternatives again? And, what's most important to you? Safety, reliability, aesthetics. Improve understanding of overhead power line assets, benefits of undergrounding, and estimated costs. Excuse me. That again is alternatives. And then identify and engage with partners, funders, and stakeholders. Collaboration. So I'm going to get another drink of water and pause here, yes. But I am done. Thank you very much.
Well, Stephen, we expect you to still participate too. So I'd first like to get more observations. And if you could go back to the last slide, Brian, observations and discussion from Directors Harris and Laliotis about what were your observations of those 3 meetings? And what were you enthusiastic about, because this hasn't been done with the district before? And then move right into what buy-in do you want to get from this board as far as issues and topics? So Tony and Kim, take it away.
Okay, Kim, you want to start off?
No, why don't you start? I don't have my notes in front of me, so I'm going to let you start, and I'll try to fill in as afterwards.
Sure. So I can start off kind of by prefacing, we really bringing this forward from, the community meetings and whatnot, we really didn't, this was a, sort of an overarching goal, right? Undergrounding utilities. But I think immediately we all recognized that this project was likely bigger than, much larger and complex than simply stating undergrounding utilities. So it really forced us to put our thinking hats on, and as a group, and kind of take a step back and go, okay, let's think about this. What are we trying to do? And Chief Celine from Truckee Fire really set it off beautifully, where he went off into these tangents about public safety and how issues with damaged overhead power lines have impacted their operation over the years. And it really kind of set the stage to kind of begin to broaden our perspective about what are we, what is it, that aside from just undergrounding electric, because we think it's going to prevent fires and look better, there was this whole other side to what damaged overhead infrastructure can also cause issues with public safety. So it was a really good kickoff meeting, and Bill's comments were really well taken, and gave us a good perspective. So it really kind of set the stage for our discussion about trying and developing our our draft scope, which, as Stephen stated, was which the first part of the scope is improve public safety. So we felt good about that because it encompassed not only wildfire protection, but it encompassed a lot of the things that we don't probably think about a lot that affect other agencies, other utilities, and the public as far as electric safety. And then reliability, we had some really good discussions about reliability and trying to figure out, what are causing the outages, and what will undergrounding of overhead power lines benefit us in establishing better reliability. And Sana was very good at kind of explaining why we, what are some of the reliability issues and how we also discussed like the overlap of reliability versus public safety. We've taken steps in our wildfire mitigation plan to, introduce single shot recloser programming for the summertime. So in the middle of summer, we may have a 4, 5, 6 hour outage, which is due to, a recloser opening, and then our protocol of patrolling the lines and making sure that when we re-energize, there's no potential for, starting a fire, where maybe the public isn't quite aware that that's a mitigation strategy for wildfire. And so they actually overlap in this. So we had a lot of good discussion about, and that sort of spurned the idea of how do we begin to communicate and educate and understand, educate the public and get a better understanding of what it is what the goal is for undergrounding of overhead power. And then lastly, aesthetics, clearly we all recognize aesthetics as an issue. It sort of fell to the last tier of our discussion, but it was very important nonetheless, because it is important. The town spends a lot of money re-envisioning streetscapes and sidewalks and transportation and mobility for pedestrians, bikes, and vehicles. And our overhead infrastructure plays a big part in all of that. So not only is it aesthetics for someone looking out their back deck or front deck and seeing, 20 different communication and power lines in front of their house, but it's also a community-wide initiative to think about aesthetics. And that brought about the discussion of, community benefit versus very focused benefit, meaning this neighborhood doesn't want power lines because they want their view, versus a downtown project or commercial core project that benefits the community, the visitors, all the people who are impacted by our streetscapes and sidewalks in this community. So it really identified and brought about the discussion about where do we focus, who pays, how do we collaborate, and how do we prioritize projects moving forward. So really good discussions. Really thinking outside the box, but everyone contributing and bringing out better ideas from each other. So I was really happy with the process. I was a little concerned in the beginning because it just seemed like a big nebulous, sort of a big nebulous project, and it really is. But we reined it back into really establishing some really achievable goals that can be talked about, that can be communicated, that can be brought back to the public for further refinement, things like that. So really, really good process. And I want to thank everyone on that task force who's involved in that, and Stephen for being our scribe and proctor and keeping us moving forward, and filling the gaps in the silence that we had every once in a while, because everyone was like, God, I don't know what's next. And so really good process.
Great.
Yeah. Tony, that was great. Thank you for kind of summing everything up. I know that Brian did join our last session there, so I'd be interested to hear his ideas and everything. But, with the education, the undergrounding is like a solution to something. So we're trying to back up and seeing what the problem was. And with the problems, there are things that we're already doing to address, there's other solutions to address those problems, because this one it's a large undertaking and expensive and everything. So it was good to back up and hear things that we were doing for fire mitigation, things that have already been done for the Donner Pass Road beautification and the downtown beautification, things like that. So no, it was a good process, and I want to extend my gratitude towards the partners that attended it, and to Stephen for helping out with it.
Great. Before we go into a discussion where I want to stop, and let's do that, Brian. Let's stop sharing the screen, because that was great. And Brian, did you want to make a comment? Since you attended that last meeting, and Director Harris, I think would like to hear.
Absolutely. I took the opportunity to attend each of the task force in their final meeting, and it was great to really see the work accomplished. As both Vice President Aliotis and Director Harris pointed out, there was a great group. I had the fortune to join when Chief Celine was there. Unfortunately, Dan couldn't make it that afternoon, but Dan and I have worked on this topic on kind of an acute perspective, like very local. This is a broader project, as has been pointed out. And really, at the onset, I think Vice President Aliotis stated that really trying to understand what this project means. And you'll kind of see that theme in some of the other initiatives. And in this discussion, I really believe started to narrow down with the expertise in the Zoom, really had the opportunity to narrow down at really what we're trying to focus on as a community. What are we trying to accomplish? And so great job. I'll kind of recap the task force at the end of this for the board's consideration, but great work.
So the next step, Tony, is it all right President Finn, if I address people in a workshop by first names?
Yes, it is. It's fine by me.
Thank you. So Tony and Kim makes it a lot easier, a lot faster. The next discussion point is, are there discussion things or buy-in that you need from the rest of the board thinking about you continuing on this task force, however it morphs after the adoption of the strategic plan? Are there discussion points you'd like to hear, feelings from your fellow board members?
I can start. I mean, yeah, I do. I mean, some of us have been privy to be through all of these meetings, which all started with the community meeting where we established these projects. And I guess we did a lot of work, and I guess I want to make sure that the rest of the board is either A, has questions that we can answer, or B, is in support or has concerns over the direction, this task force is headed in, as well as, sort of the scope that we developed and the process where we're going to try and continue to refine and that scope and answer the questions within that scope.
So I heard two things, Tony, that you want input on. First of all, are there questions that you and Kim could answer for the board? And then comments on scope and process, which would include concerns.
Correct. And I don't know, Kim, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think you've summed it up.
Okay. So just have a discussion. Krista, Jeff, Joe, what are you guys thinking about this? Help your colleagues out.
I've been taking copious notes of my ideas. So, Krista, do you mind if I go first? Okay. As I'm listening to this and the recap, and to me, this is just so much of a no-brainer. I am super excited about this initiative. The why, with Tony indicating, with Bill Salim, it just keeps getting deeper, and the reasons to just make this happen. And listening to this and being on the board for 12 years, I feel we've got the people, we've got the partners, the community partners. We absolutely have the skills. This district has the skills to get this done. We have the people to obtain grants and to find the funds to make this happen. And we absolutely have the tools. Just look at all the electrical department linemen's tools and the trucks, the equipment. So if you can't just feel the smile in my face about this project, and we're either 40% or 60% already there. So we're doing it. So with all that excitement, I get a little impatient with the theoretical part, so it's like, well, let's just stop talking about it. Let's just get some stuff done, because this is cool. Let's get in our trucks and start digging stuff and doing it. And I think with our community partners, we can prioritize it. and make it happen, because the funds will be there when you identify and prioritize with the other communities plus districts, the town, etc. Once we learn what the projects they're doing in the short term, boom, we can really start checking off some electrical underground immediately, and we're already doing it. So those are all my notes in a nutshell. So I'm super excited about it. Just love hearing the recap of it, and ready to get to the next step or skip some.
Jeff, I'm really glad you went first, because we had like almost opposite reactions to it. Like I was struck by how many parallels there are to, I think, all of the initiatives, like answering the question of the why. Why do we want to do this? Is it safety? Is it increasing our reliability? Is it, things like aesthetics, things like environmental stewardship? And this one, if it's really safety, how unsafe are we, and have we been? And is this really the biggest bang for our buck in a community wildfire situation? Like that's really what it is, right? We're like afraid of wildfire. We think undergrounding will shave off, say there's a 1% chance that our system creates a wildfire, and undergrounding it shaves that to 0.25% for $1 billion for the community. So as far as the return on investment with the money goes, is that the best answer for addressing safety? Because this is something we discussed a lot in my local generation initiative. Really similar conversation. And I think, I agree with you that I think funding is like, there's a lot of movement federally and statewide for rural communities to help us become more safe, more resilient, to update our electrical grid, for broadband. I definitely think, but I would be interested in what the scope, like, to me, this project makes sense in certain places in town, like the downtown core, like the Donner Pass Road beautification, like maybe up Northwoods, like not all the way up, but one thing I do see happen a lot is cars hit poles. So there's a safety issue that happens at least twice a year. It's guaranteed, especially on Northwoods. So I do think that, but I think this is one that we really have to be careful of and chunk up in real, where's the biggest bang for our buck with the undergrounding, and I think we're going to really have to get that, the grant writing department, which is brand new, like really, really looking at opportunities that are out there for this district to get the sort of money, because it's just big upfront money. It's, ultimately will pay for itself with our, mitigation. We're doing $1.5 million worth of vegetation management every year now, right? And that is a lot. But that's still, like, I don't know, math is tough, but how many years does it take to make $1 billion? It's a lot. It's a lot of years. So we need the money. I am absolutely supportive of the initiative, but I want to make sure that, I think the way that these are going to happen is that within these 4 initiatives, even within, this district, that we are really collaborating. All of the things that might have to go in the ground at the same time, or the same if we're working on wildfire mitigation. What are the overlaps within our initiatives? What are the overlapping? Money is a big overlap. When you're talking about scooping up, if it were that easy, scooping up money to promote the safety and resiliency of this rural community and protect it from burning to the ground. All of our initiatives almost speak to that, including the broadband, because we can't, communications is vital in an emergency. So I'm excited and interested to see and further explore the overlaps of these initiatives with each other and how we can fully leverage and kind of rating them on that. Like, I think safety and resiliency is probably on the top of every single one of the initiatives. Like, that's the why for probably all four, to an extent. And so I think we're going to have to start collecting some data and quantifying what's the biggest bang for safety for this community, which of these initiatives, and how, not which, because it's not a matter of choosing between them. I think that all of them can be forwarded, but I didn't have like the full on, let's just go that Jeff did. It was pretty funny. I was like, wow, because I was like, oh man, this one made me feel a little bit like it was a heavier lift for not as big a return. So, but not that it's not worth doing or is doable, but it's something I would definitely approach with some care and talking to the community about it like they did, put it at number one. And that is something to think about carefully. And how do we explain if we don't manage to underground or we present a plan to the community that's very chunked up and limited, and we're going to start here and people are going to feel like there's winners and losers, and why is that, approaching it, that too, I think is going to be an interesting challenge.
No, those are all excellent points, and I'm glad that you two weren't on this committee together. So, we wouldn't have got anything done. Jeez. No, the reality is, Krista, I think, I walked into the situation kind of feeling the same way you did. It's just like, but I agree. I think in the end, the goal will be to figure out how we identify, like you say, we brought this topic up. It's like, well, what is the safety issue? What are the wildfire implications of our overhead, infrastructure? And what are the real issues? What are the problems? How do we solve it? Are there alternatives to undergrounding? And what are we already doing as alternatives to mitigate wildfire? So that was, I think that was at the forefront of everyone's mind, because there's just no way. And I appreciate Jeff's enthusiasm, but there's just no way that we can effectively underground 130 miles of overhead, for what I believe that even a combination of grants and rates and all those will the public will tolerate. So I just don't think the funding is there. It doesn't mean we can't look for it. And I believe that part of this moving forward will be the initiative with this initiative will be to understand what are the funding opportunities to help for it. But we really, I think what it comes down to is sort of more of a cost benefit analysis, and then identify the priorities, and then maybe, down the line, engaging a consultant to do an undergrounding master plan that ties priorities to dollars and to public benefit, so that we as a board can make educated decisions about what the best bang for the buck is for what's available. I agree, Jeff. We need to identify what funding is available. I personally am not confident we'll find enough funding to do a comprehensive undergrounding program, because I just don't think I don't think there's enough grant funding. I don't think the public will tolerate the rate increases or the property assessments that would come along with that level of project. But I think a very distinct outcome of this first, meetings was we need to really start to identify the problems and reach back out to the public with maybe a little bit more insight and start to begin to gain a little bit better understanding of the public's desire for undergrounding. So
let me just clarify. Please don't confuse my enthusiasm for a wanting comprehensive undergrounding. Okay? That I think that was assumed, and that is not my intent. My intent is there's enormous amount of low-hanging fruit, and that we can grab immediately. So that's where a lot of my enthusiasm is. And
okay, you're back on the committee now.
Okay.
so because there are probably some areas that just will maybe never get undergrounded, right? Or not for 50 years. So I just want to clarify that.
Well, and something simple, like a start on this is just a sort of a commitment from the PUD that when the town or another agency has a project that they are putting things in the ground, that we really seriously look at that place at that moment, and can we pull together funds and underground the utilities at the same time, like the beautified DPR project, just make a commitment going forward that we will always take those opportunities very seriously when they come up. That's kind of a simple thing, that would get just a little.
No, yeah, we certainly identified that as, it's already ongoing, and staff was, staff was very clear that, that's the process that we're undergoing. And my issue there was to continue that and to make sure that the town, and, developers and, other key stakeholders who are envisioning these projects get in front of us soon enough so that we can discuss and plan and budget for these projects effectively. So there is definitely a focus on collaboration within the community when it comes to projects that will benefit from undergrounding. But the goal really is that we're talking 3 or 4 or 5, maybe even 6 years out with these stakeholders about these projects, because, we need the time to develop, agreements and then develop the funding and the budgeting, and for our, for whatever, if we agree to a portion of a project, so that we're not having to react so quickly, and creating other issues within the community versus planning. Good planning goes a long way. So
I want to keep us on target here. It's 6:25, and we have 3 more initiatives plus 2 other presentations. This is one of the best board discussions I've heard. And I just want to ask Kim and Tony, what have you heard tonight, and what do you think, what's your recommendation about board roles moving forward? It sounds like you want to stay involved. There's a lot of work to do yet.
Yeah, I think, we always talked about education and, education on undergrounding and what the costs and benefits are always helpful. There were 2 things that resonated with me in the first task force meeting that we have. One was the CPUC Rule 20, and it does go into costs, and it talks about distribution undergrounding is 8 times more expensive than insulating covering the conductors. So, the information and statistics like that are helpful, I think, for staff when looking into bringing forth a proposal for funding for certain things. And then the other thing is that Bill Saline, I know that the fire department is going through an initiative for a tax to be passed for wildlife or wildfire mitigation. And he said that undergrounding utilities is a concern, but he doesn't look at it as a key concern. So that I thought was very good. But it's always important to, if they say, gosh, you have this one pole that everybody keeps hitting, what can we do to, minimize that risk and maybe save some lives and change that out into a guardrail or just little things, something like that. But, trying to think of that. I appreciate Jeff's enthusiasm about raising money, but this is a high ticket item if we did do the full comprehensive amount.
Thank you. Brian, do you want to just quickly summarize and we'll move on to broadband?
Yeah, thank you. Great comments. This discussion this evening is exactly the intent out of each of the task force as we go through the rest of the initiatives. This is for board consideration on May 19th to formally adopt these initiatives. And then after that, each of the adopted initiatives staff will be coming back with deliverables at the board's direction and feedback from all of the stakeholders and partners. So the goals have been established as a proposed goals moving forward, provided these initiatives are adopted. And all of the topics what's interesting is, and what's really nice to hear is all of the perspectives really align with what came out of those focus groups when we had the discussions on these topics. And so your questions and answers and concerns align with what we have learned through the surveys, through the focus groups, and through these task forces. So that's a good sign. That's a great sign that we're moving in the right direction. And as we adopt these initiatives, being presumptive there, but as we adopt these initiatives, we can start bringing back the information to this board to make decisions and bring in partners and stakeholders. So very exciting.
Good. And just a tool to remember is that there are very fast, quick ways to get community input and educate. It's not all in person anymore, as you know. But we also have all the emails of, I think we have over 90%, Stephen, right, of the emails of the focus groups because we emailed them out.
We have 100% in terms of if they needed an email to register. So we have,
right. So we have all of that. So just remember that as you think about next steps. Okay, we got to move quickly. Let's go to broadband. Can't wait to see what Jeff is going to say about broadband.
I'm going to not pull a Laliotis and be much briefer.
Okay, Brian. Oh, we have to get to broadband.
Get my slide going here. All right, high-speed broadband or community broadband. Obviously, out of the task force, the focus groups and the surveys, right behind the undergrounding that was identified as a high priority to learn more of, get more information on, was community high-speed broadband or high-speed internet. For this task force, I got to adjust my screen here, blocking my own view. The members that attended this task force, Director Bender, Steve Frisch, and Carrie, I apologize if I mispronounce your last name, Carrie Senoff with Sierra Business Council, Kathleen Egan, former town mayor and community supporter and activist, Deirdre Henderson, and with the had great interest in the economic impacts of communication here in the community, Ed Hilton with the school district IT director there, Judy Price with the town of Truckee, who brought some great input with her experience and work with our current ISP providers, Suddenlink, Verizon, et cetera, had some great perspective on what some of the challenges are currently here in our community. And then I attended as well. Our meetings took place on Thursday, March 25th and Thursday, April 8th. I'm proud to say that our working group was very efficient and effective and felt that out of interest of time and efficiency, we had 2 meetings, but we're looking forward to re-engaging after the May 19th board consideration. Some of the key discussions were really began with presenting and painting a picture of what challenge the community is currently facing. What's the background here? Community broadband and that access, equity of access and continuity of service has been a challenge for this community for some time. Obviously, the district had considered community broadband how do we participate in the past, and it's resurfaced through our community engagement as a need. And so We did an overview of what the PUD's current existing communication infrastructure is. Clearly, this is our backbone fiber optic loop for communication within our own facilities, but utilizing that, what are the opportunities to utilize that existing infrastructure for a larger community benefit? We had a long discussion on the importance of reliable communication infrastructure to the economic health of this community. This is in terms of business viability, our education, and our residents here that oftentimes work in our new paradigm of Zoom. Exploring various organizational structure opportunities. This is really getting into the topic or the concept of public-private partnerships, public-public partnerships, incorporating existing ISPs. Are there other economic structures or business structures that we could capitalize on? A very rich discussion emerged out of this topic in terms of maintaining local control. So do we continue to expand this infrastructure, but relinquish it to investor-owned interests, or is there an opportunity both financially and logistically to keep that under local control? And that was a great discussion, really great contributions from each of the attendees. And then really looking at emerging funding opportunities. In the undergrounding topic, you all mentioned federal, regional, state funding opportunities, grants, things, Steve Frisch with the Sierra Business Council brought up a great point in terms of communication is a key component to public safety and emergency response. So where are there funding opportunities from that perspective? And then how do we as a community quickly integrate industry expertise, funding expertise, and identifying examples both regionally and nationally of other communities who have either attempted this or have been successful in this endeavor? What lessons have they learned, and what successes can we garner from their experiences? The initial project scope was to identify a level of broadband internet services the community requires to meet local needs from the perspective of public safety, economic health, and community access. Based upon these needs, establish collaborative partnerships to facilitate the larger community benefit. Some of the proposed goals: identify key stakeholders, potential partners, and local resources. We really had some great discussion on differentiating between stakeholders and partners. What are the similarities and differences between those two key participants? And then what local resources? This is a very rich and dynamic community in terms of backgrounds, experiences, professions, education. And so where can we very quickly identify local resources here? I have to say, from this goal, we're already moving. I continuously, as we speak, receive notifications and emails of interest. I know that Mayor Klofstad and Steve Frisch and Judy Price have really already started sending me information. Deirdre Henderson sending me information of resources that are here locally in the community, or perhaps within their scope of expertise regionally. So this is already beginning. Second, here we saw develop a scope of work for a feasibility study. Everyone really acknowledged that, similar to the undergrounding project, we really need to understand what scope of work we're talking about, and then really start looking at how do we resource this and how do we structure it. Identify options for potential organizational structure. This, again, was one of the goals of really exploring the differences between, simply, baseline the PUD's infrastructure versus local public partnerships, and then local public and private opportunities or investor opportunities. And then finally, identifying funding opportunities. This is going to be a big one with all of these initiatives. And obviously, we have some, construct of our own funding as a public utility. Water and electric is a little bit different. There are some mechanisms within the municipalities or land use agencies. And then what other opportunities out there? Great discussions on county, state, and federal funding opportunities that this community might be able to tap into. And with that, I will ask Director Bender to provide input and comments.
And Brian, let's stop share so everybody can see each other. Okay, Jeff.
So I'm going to just say I'm not as enthusiastic about this one as the other one. This one is a daunting task. I'm going to steal from Tony. It's a nebulous project. It's cloudy. It's fuzzy. The funding's fuzzy. We don't have the tools. We don't have a department for this. So, there's a lot of work. I'm really happy to hear from Brian that we're already getting town input to help. This initiative is much more, lot more theoretical than boots on the ground with the undergrounding. People really want it. It's super key for economic development here. One thing, that I heard from the board originally was there's a lot of concern regarding the cost, the lack of a department that we don't have with the district for broadband. And so a member of our committee brought up, don't eliminate creating a department. She just keep an open mind. And I think that's just, kind of a theme with this initiative is keeping an open mind, bringing in other experts and professionals, as Brian's already hearing and learning who those people are. Two great meetings that we had. Not as excited because it's daunting. It's big, but dang it, do I need high-speed internet at my office? Yes. Oh my God. We need it in the core commercial area. We need it for this community, for the town, for the other agencies. And dang it, we need to, it'll be the backbone for communication, emergency, for business, for, recreation as well. So, dang it, we need it, but it's overwhelming.
So Jeff, what input do you need from your board members? Because you're the lone board member on this task force and you're representing the board. What do you want to hear from them?
Just overall feelings, this is in theoretical stages. The need is still, confirming the need. Maybe there's different ideas to plug in that you might have. Or if you're just going, oh my gosh, what are we doing? I wouldn't
jump in there and give Jeff feedback.
I wouldn't mind starting with Joe. We didn't hear from Joe Aguera last time. So Joe, can I pick on you?
Yeah, you can pick on me. I'm sitting here, I don't know anything about broadband or anything like that. But out of all our conversations and meetings we've had, that's the only comments I've gotten back from the public is on the broadband. When are you guys going to start the broadband? Okay, we know that it's wanted. And as we were talking undergrounding electric, I think that's a double project in the broadband, because we've got some broadband and I'm going to ask Brian, do we have like at least 3/4 of the broadband that we need to do the whole project? Do we have at least 3/4?
Yeah, in terms of our district master plan for the fiber loops, we have about 62 of the 90 plus miles already installed. So we're getting close, but this is for our district infrastructure. So there's additional, infrastructure that would need to be installed.
Okay, now Jeff also mentioned we don't have a department and we don't have that as we go, but on the electric undergrounding, we have a map of the broadband, and we're going to have a map naturally on the undergrounding. And just look out the window and you can see the wires that have to go underground. But there's going to be sections where we go underground with electric, where we can maybe put in the broadband too, the cables. And I wondered if we can have both maps, a diagram, so we can overlap them and say, hey, this is where we need the broadband and the electrical things. And I think if we finish the cable, if we can get through the cable thing, or at least study how much that's going to cost and run. And you talked about financial on the electric undergrounding, like it's already there almost. And it's not. And it's not for the broadband either. But I was going to ask on the electrical, would this be a project where we start at this point and continue until we're done? No, it's going to be an ongoing project as we go, I'm sure. It's not going to be, okay, we start the project today and by December of next year we'll be done. As long as we keep building, and we're not going to do that. But we are going to try to start it and work on it. And we can, I think, interject and study the process of getting some of that broadband equipment in the ground about the same time. So, I mean, we can whittle the finances down maybe between them. And then the partnerships, too, that Chris have mentioned, as we go, they'll want some broadband and they want some undergrounding. Now, one of the questions I wanted to ask Tony was, you start with, we have to educate the public on the why we want the undergrounding on the electrical. Don't you think that half the public already knows the benefits of what we have, of what we need it for, or is you think that everybody's in the dark about it, or is it just half the public, or is it more or less? Do you have an idea what would be?
No, Joe, I think the concept was that we don't, as we went through this process, we identified, undergrounding, that perhaps a lot of the response was from the public and support was for undergrounding was because of wildfire mitigation and wildfire safety. So we certainly asked ourselves the question, it's like, that's the public perception. Is that reality? Is that the what, and Krista said this correctly. What is the benefit of, what's the danger of not undergrounding? How many, what's the risk of wildfires due to overhead infrastructure in our community? What has it been historically? And, is it truly, the overarching reason to spend that kind of money? So I think the education, Joe, kind of comes back to is having a more defined answer to that question of what does undergrounding mean to wildfire safety in our community? Because wildfire safety and electric lines has been a big topic in California, but is it 100% relevant to our community?
Well, 100%. On the entrance of our line, of our power, yes, it is. And on the exit of it, we need where the forest starts and where the forest ends. That's where we need the undergrounding to start with. And then take care of the rest of the stuff in the middle of the town. Now, I think that I've had, I gave Jeff, I gave you my ideas now on the broadband, and I think that I hit Tony on the electrical too at the same time. So that's how I would have it at this point.
That's cool, Joe. Thank you so much.
It all depends on the study and on the finances, what they expect to spend on these projects.
Right. Sounds like you want to see that master plan and feasibility study, both of those. So Jeff still needs to hear from Kim and Krista and Tony on broadband. Any comments?
I appreciate that you took this on, because broadband is definitely a hot topic around here. It's always a bummer when you get a bit of the sticker shock of what's happening. But it looks like the PUD has already taken step in small doses by giving broadband to like the areas where school children don't really have great access to to internet for their classes. And granted, all the classes are in person now. But I think kind of continuing along those lines are always helpful. And like the other person said, don't discount it just because of the price tag, but you can get creative in different ways.
Yeah, I think, Jeff, one of the key differences I see between this project and undergrounding is the why. I think that's pretty much a no-brainer as to why, and in a little different, thought process from you, Jeff. I don't necessarily. There's still some stuff to do on the why question for undergrounding. I don't think that really necessarily exists with broadband. I think the why is pretty darn clear in this community, and it's manifested itself time and time again over the last few years with reliability and other issues with broadband. So I'm pretty comfortable with the why. I do agree, Jeff, that there's a lot of how. How do you do it? That's really, to me, the nebulous part. I appreciate one of the task force members' comments about don't discount your own department. I don't disagree with that. That we shouldn't discount it, but I think it needs to be thoroughly studied and vetted, because it's not only people, it's infrastructure, it's office space, it's equipment, it's vehicles. It's a big lift to do it in-house. And while I'm not going to discount it, I think it needs a really thorough cost evaluation to determine what it means to say we're going to do it in-house versus the alternatives, which have also been identified, such as partnerships or leasing of infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. So, no, I think, I'm glad I think you guys had a good working group. I'm satisfied with the goals and objectives that have been developed to date. And I appreciate everyone's input and the task force input on these items. So, Krista, the floor is yours.
Jeff, I'm going to be for you what you were for Tony. I think broadband. I think it's totally doable. I think we can have discussions about how big of a role the PUD needs to play in being the actual service provider versus just the infrastructure provider. I think that is absolutely a discussion that is, needs to be had and had with an open mind. But I am not wedded to us creating a department or not creating a department. But I think that this town needs broadband. I think that PUD is the natural partner for it, because we already have a good chunk of infrastructure in, and we have to put in, we have to finish our infrastructure plan. So we are going to be playing a role in this. And again, I see in the near future, broadband has been defined as vital infrastructure. That is happening. That is what I suspect the feds are going to be throwing a lot of money at infrastructure in rural areas, and broadband clearly fits that bill. I also think we have a lot of talent in this community and knowledge. Steve Frisch I've had a number of conversations with him about this in the fall before we even got to these initiatives. And I was shocked at how almost, kind of people really ready, boots on the ground to present us with a business plan, a master plan. Lots of people are ready to help in lots of different areas. The actual physical, how is it going to work, and also regulations, and also money, how to get the money and where's the money going to come from. So I have a lot of optimism for this, and I think it's something that could be done relatively quickly and possibly, If it was a neutral revenue, I think that would be awesome. If it generated a tiny bit, that would be an incredible amount of gravy. But I think, if the PUD can lend our infrastructure and our support behind this, I think that will go a long way to getting broadband into this town.
Yeah, no.
Jeff, do you have a clear direction?
Yeah, and I just thank you, Krista, for that. That I keep getting hit with my excitement. But we're sharing excitement, which lies in the fact, and I wrote this down, that we are already doing it, right? And I think that's just a key point with broadband and undergrounding. All new development projects are going underground electrically, and we're already putting in communication infrastructure in the ground. We already have so many miles of fiber in the ground. So I'm sharing that excitement for both of these initiatives because we're already doing it. So, and that's super exciting.
I just want to interject one more thing that's relevant to this conversation is that, and to keep in mind when we talk about all of these things, is sources of revenue. And broadband is not a source of revenue for us now, but to institute this project would make it a source of revenue for us. So it's important to keep that distinction in mind. We're a zero-based budget. So on the electric side, the rates we're paying go to, our infrastructure and purchase power and operations. And that money's accounted for. And that there's not going to be some big bucket of money that's going to come from our customers, anytime soon. Broadband, it's not there. People will pay for it. So we have a revenue source to work with. So that's kind of I see that as a fundamental difference between these two topics as we move forward in discussing, what the next steps are. And so I share a little more optimism as Krista does because that also exists.
And just a reminder, Jeff, as you report back to the task force or whatever your next steps are going to be, it's why the board nested this initiative under Manage for Financial Stability and Resiliency, goal number 1, with the expectation that maybe there could be a revenue stream there.
So to Pam, I'm just going to say, and Tony just kind of solidified it, it was a light bulb quadrant. It is now in the star quadrant, and it dang really well could be in the cash cow quadrant. So I'm seeing that in my mind right now, and Tony just solidified it with his last statement. So
Jeff, that is a great application of that matrix.
Yeah. And Tony's not feeling it for the underground. It's not making it to the cash cow.
I'm not sure it's moved to the bright idea even.
Right. So, all right. I feel it.
That's great. Krista, I'm wondering, you guys, this is the real deal, these discussions. Not only that, you're having fun together, you're laughing, and you're having meaningful discussions. I just don't want us to end without finishing this final workshop. And should we take a break, Krista? Would everyone please entertain the idea of just 45 minutes more?
Sure, we got to finish it up.
Okay, I would love to finish it up. I feel like last time because I'm the last two.
Yeah, there won't be another opportunity for me to participate in the last part. And I really would like, as our last strategic planning workshop, to be able to finish these concepts.
Well, shall we take another quick break and then come back?
People like a quick break?
Okay, and my screen is frozen, so I'm probably going to turn it all the way off and come all the way back on so I can mute and stuff. So if we can take another 10 minutes, is that too long? 5 minutes? 5 okay.
Minutes.
Let's take 5 minutes. Yeah, we don't want to get on a big day tomorrow. We have to go to bed early.
Kim, is that okay with you? I didn't see a thumbs up. Is that okay?
Oh, it's
5
okay
minutes?
with me, and I'm
Joe?
my hearing aids to tame you guys down.
As quick as we can do it, because I still do have a prep for tomorrow.
Yeah, we exactly for tomorrow. I think we can't underestimate.
5 minutes then.
So 5 minutes. We'll be back at 7:02.
Okay. What do you think, Krista? We ready?
I'm trying. Okay. Yes, I think we should jump right back into it and bang this out and then get a good night's sleep.
Okay. Well, the discussions are just really important. So we move on to what I can't wait to hear about, 100% clean renewable with Joe and Krista. So Joe.
Well, good evening again, President Finn, directors. I know our time is rapidly approaching the hour, so I'll try to be as efficient as possible. I want to thank a big thank you to all our members who participated wholeheartedly and lent of all their time and expertise. Of course, President Finn, interim General Manager Brian Wright came to our third meeting, which I appreciate his introductory words, his presence there. Of course, Vice Mayor Courtney Henderson, Deidre Henderson, Ward Sproats, and myself as facilitator. This meeting number 3 of this task force, we essentially spent the time talking, discussing and refining our draft goals for the task force and the scope of work. And what I'd like to do now is just present these goals and the scope of work, because I think this is sort of the fruits of our discussion. So the the goals are on this page, and then the next slide we'll talk about the scope. The goals established were to continue to collaborate with our key community partners, including the town, local agencies, and other stakeholders to address community-wide climate change adaptation and mitigation goals. Second was to develop a series of community learning and engagement opportunities to discuss, to facilitate, and to propose the adoption of various energy solution offerings. And third was to propose a definition for the long-term 100% clean renewable goal and vision for the district. And let me speak briefly to each one of these goals. We thought as a task force that it was very important to continue to collaborate with our community partners, the town, local agencies, and others, because we recognize that that climate change, of course, is due to greenhouse gas emissions. That is enterprise-wide, sector-wide across all the different industries. It's interesting to note that the power sector only contributes to 16% of all the GHG emissions. 41% is because of transportation. 24% is because of industrial. So the lion's share is really something that involves all of us together, the town, local agencies, and others, talking about this, what we can do in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So this is an important goal to continue to collaborate with all these, with our agencies and the town stakeholders. Goal number 2, this is really our education components, perhaps the meat of what we're trying to do with this task force, to develop a series of community learning events. So these we would propose, of course, in the COVID world to be something like a Zoom meeting, but also we added this phrase and engagement opportunities because we really want a way for the community to give some two-way feedback to some of the things that we want to discuss and speak to. So we added this phrase, engagement opportunities. And of course, at the end of this was to propose a definition for the board to move forward with. Next slide, please. And then our proposed scope includes the following 3 items: to conduct at least 3 educational workshops held via Zoom within the next 3 to 6 months. The second goal is to identify those engagement opportunities with the community members to really get their feedback in a more focused, two-way interaction with engagement opportunities. And then, of course, our last one was to identify and make contact with other stakeholder groups which may be operating with similar goals for collaboration purposes. I think that part of this is the idea that reducing greenhouse gas emissions is a big picture item. the other stakeholders are engaged in a similar process. So is there a way we can collaborate with these other stakeholder groups that are currently that may be currently meeting about this already? I think that's sort of our summary. I'll stop there and then open it up to, I'll turn it over to President Finn and other board members. Thank you.
Yeah, so Brian, let's share screen. And Krista, your observations of this particular task force and what input you'd like from your fellow colleagues.
Well, thank you, Joe, for that little overview of what we got done and talked about. This task force is, I think we really need to acknowledge this is well underway. This is something, again, that the PUD has been focusing on very successfully. We have been a leader in this community, responding to their demands, and we've done it very successfully. So this is just a continuation of a journey that we've already been, we're continuing onwards. This task force, I think, they were very grateful that we are still giving this attention and furthering it, and that we, as Joe pointed out, the electrical sector of our country is not a huge driver of greenhouse gas emissions. Transportation, buildings. But I think that this is such an important initiative because those sectors are going to be depending more and more on electrification to get us out of the greenhouse gas emissions trap that we're in. So as the town, for example, focuses on transferring their fleets and as individual community members switch to electrical vehicles, that is going to take the greenhouse gas emissions from the transportation section and deliver it squarely into the electrical sector. And that's what we want to continue to pursue, our renewable sources, because we are going to be providing more electricity for this town to mitigate greenhouse gases across all of these sectors. So it's, and it's also, it's like we're on the hamster wheel because we're going to need to purchase more and more electricity, and getting that from renewable sources, as we know, it's a challenge. It's a doable challenge. And one of the things we are still talking around and about is the town's renewable goals, and they were clear about the renewable energy and what counts as renewable energy. And that is different from what, for example, the state counts as renewable energy. And then the difference between renewable and clean energy. For example, the small nuclear falls under clean, but not renewable. Large hydro, which, you would think is renewable, is not considered renewable by the state. So there are a lot of nuances. And as we continue to grow the amount of power we have to purchase, we are going to have to, and this is also state and federal laws about getting to 60% renewable, and then the next 40% has to be clean. And that is a different definition from what the town has passed. So definitions are really important, and it's important to this community. Like we, as you all know, having participated in the small nuclear power project, and the town, not the town, the community, the people here had a political response to that, right? There was a lot of, but that we talked about this a lot in education, and how as we have to continue to purchase more and more energy, it is quite possible we're going to need to purchase energy that falls outside of our comfort level, right? Let's put it that way. Now is not necessarily the time we have to have that conversation, because we're not quite there yet. And as far as finances go and making sure it's fiscally responsible, the energy choices, so they have to be renewable, they have to be clean, they have to be affordable, and they have to be reliable. So these are still really active topics, and outreach to the community and making sure we're in alignment with this community's desires as we continue to fully approach these goals. So,
Krista, what input do you need from the board so that you're representing the board in these task forces?
I think I need the board. We need to have a discussion about clean and renewable and when to use that language, and like that we know as a board what we mean by renewable and what we mean by clean, and define for ourselves what those should be for this PUD, not necessarily what the state is saying and what the feds are saying, you know, obviously having to remain compliant, but what is this community, when we say renewable, what do they think that means? When we say clean, what do they think that means? And then explaining to them what we think they mean or what we're trying to do. And I think that is still really important. That conversation is still happening. And also, you know, to be really clear about how far we can get with each of those sectors of the energy, you know, providers. So
what I heard you say is that you as a board, your suggestion is that you as a board really have a thorough discussion on clean and renewable. And Brian, would your recommendations be that that's a whole workshop?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
It's not going to happen tonight.
That's what I'm hearing is that once these initiatives are adopted, that we as staff at the direction of the board, May 19th, start building opportunities for a more informative workshop on the topic of defining renewable.
I mean, there's definitely.
Joe, is that what you would want as well?
Sure. I think that would be an important step to take.
Yeah, because I think, Krista, to your point, you really need to hear what each of your colleagues think and what their opinions are, and maybe a review, because perhaps not everyone knows as much about this topic as you do.
Yeah, and to be guided by the community and be able to come back to the community with a real conversation with them, you know, just clarity. I still think we need clarity.
Tony, Jeff, Kim, Joe.
I mean, I like the education. I think that's definitely important, and just basically showing a commitment to ensuring that we're getting, you know, educating the communities and everybody, and partner and say we support, you know, this initiative that the town of Truckee did, you know, and kind of come out with our commitment and support.
Joe, do you agree with having a workshop that just focuses on clean and renewable? Joe?
Which Joe? Joe Horvath or Joe?
Joe Aguirre.
Joe, you're muted.
Joe Aguirre.
Joe, I think he's saying yes.
Okay.
Joe, you're muted. He was shaking his head up and down. Yes. Joe, do you agree with having a workshop?
If this is the Joe you're talking to, yes, I do.
Yes. Sorry, I should have said your last name. Sorry.
No,
Tony?
okay.
I think it's a fantastic launching point because, you know, we as a board have to have these frank discussions about these definitions, because there is still a lot of work to be done in this community to work together, to collaborate and come together with these ideas. But, you know, that takes time and education. And I think we as the energy provider, it has to start with us. So I'm 100% behind that as one of the first goals to move forward with.
Great. Jeff, where's your enthusiasm?
Yeah, I totally agree. Definitely need a workshop on that because there's a big part of this community which thinks nuclear is not clean. And that was one of my little pet projects. Went to Utah, learned about it, spent a lot of time on that project, working with UAMPS and learning about it. And then we shot it down. So absolutely, we've got to talk about it and learn about and figure out how we as a board define clean versus renewable. And
great.
and if you even think about nuclear, there's a lot of education regarding what the heck to do with the waste. So
Thank you so much. Brian, do you have clear direction?
Yeah, just for clarification here, this we're not, these are task force, GM task force to present the board information. Direction will come after adoption of the initiatives on May 19th, and we'll revisit this topic. But it's a great, as Vice President Laliota said, this is a great launching point in the discussion. Staff will be asking for direction once these initiatives are considered and adopted.
Great.
Oh, and before we jump off, I rode my bike over Prosser Dam, and I just wanted to throw it out, Joe. Prosser Dam micro hydro. That's it.
Hey, we're not done.
I haven't forgotten about you, Director Bender.
We have one more initiative, Director Bender. Jeff. Clean power generation. President Finn and Stephen.
All right. Thank you. And great discussions. I'm going to be kind of quick here because there's a lot of common themes at a very high level, and Vice President Laliota summed it up beautifully. This question of public safety and electric system reliability, how do you define it, understand, and collaborate with the stakeholders and funders to leverage community resources and maximize co-benefits? It's a complicated statement, but, it really gets at many stakeholders, funders, agencies benefit from things like biomass.
We have 10 minutes, Stephen, okay. 10 minutes.
Good. I will be fast. So
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I know Director Harris has to leave, and I want to be sure we get board direction. Input.
Yep. So local clean power generation, President Finn, Vice Mayor Courtney Henderson from the town, Steve Frisch from Sierra Business Council, Kevin Smith from the Airport District, and myself. That series of meetings. The key discussion points is environmental stewardship is important, but not the only driving force behind the initiative. And it started with building local generation, but it really turned into public safety and community resiliency. And there's many players in solutions, like many of the other task force. There's a desire to integrate public policy objectives by identifying and understanding co-benefits and costs. And that's kind of where this initiative, and if you look at the members, was more of a policy discussion. How do I do that? We have all these agencies that have their own budgets and their own mandates and their own laws and regulations, and yet we want to share and collaborate and leverage. And then, the collaborate and engage with funders, partners, and stakeholders for that reason. And it's not up here, but the communication, the why, the community outreach also played a big role here. Next slide, please. So our initial project scope, pursue opportunities, including local clean generation for TDPUD to improve public safety, electric system reliability, environmental stewardship, and integrated public policy objectives. So the first two we've talked about. The environmental stewardship, it's a big part of this. It's a big part of 100%. So, that's consistent. And then the integrated public policy objectives. How do you actually do that when you have so many alternatives and so many players? And the goals we established were, again, the public outreach, education, and community input. identify and define co-benefits, costs, and metrics for success. So again, in this public policy integrated, how do you define success? And then identify, engage with partners, funders, and stakeholders. And again, all to try to define the initiative scope, timelines, and estimated costs. And I'll pass it to President Finn.
Yeah, Krista, observations, and then what input do you need from your colleagues?
The observations from participating in this group is it's incredibly complex just to figure out where to start and how to measure success and how to collaborate. How do we invite people into this discussion and how do we quantify what each group or each district brings to the table and what they're going to get out of it. Everybody agrees that there's a lot of overlap and need around this topic, mostly for, I'm just going to use biomass as an easy example because I've heard that come out of 5 different people's mouths in 2 days, from Chief Celine to Kevin Smith to I'm blanking out, but it doesn't matter, district leaders, because it addresses so many different things that are going on. It's an economic driver, it's a safety factor, wildfire mitigation, local power production. It just covers a lot of territory, but how do we come together to make that happen? That's very complex. What I would like to discuss with this board is what they can envision the PUD's role specifically in such a venture, and not necessarily biomass, but I agree, small hydro, small local hydro would be great. If it's distributed energy resources like solar panels on homes, that just discussion of how the PUD can support local generation projects, and to think about kind of stretching out into the community in ways that we are not necessarily used to. And I think we are thinking about that because we're talking about broadband. We're talking about things that we've never talked about before as a utility district. But I think this project falls squarely into that, as an economic driver, as a public safety measures, as creating local generation to make us less dependent on transmission from Nevada Energy and PG&E with their public safety power shutoffs. There's just a lot of things, but it's going to involve us, is the board willing to think about those different directions and functions of the PUD? Do we want to breathe into that space? I hope so.
Who wants to go first? Tony.
Sure. No, thanks. I think this is a slow education process because, we as a board have been, talked to about biomass in terms of, the Loyalton plant, start and stop, $90 a megawatt hour, of energy and this and that. And, I think we all have a negative, we've all sort of trained our thought that it just doesn't make sense. And so, first off, I think we need to discuss that a little bit more. Does it make sense, and how do we make, does it make sense for our community, and how does it happen more locally? And, if it is that expensive, what are the benefits? And then it morphs into the discussion about what else is there, as Jeff was saying, micro hydro, other ideas for local generation outside of biomass, or inclusive of biomass if it comes down to it. I think there's a lot of education and research to be done to determine the viability of this topic. And not sure where to start.
Do you think what I heard Krista say is wanting your recommendation as to the PUD's role? Might the role be to facilitate education?
Yeah, I think we have the expertise to try and understand what might be viable in this community. And I just don't know how deep to dive into that. from our agency and how much money to spend on it. So this one's going to take a little more vetting for me.
Okay.
With these types of things, I always like to see what do we have. And in the community, you rambled off a bunch of names, and I know that the Keep Truckee Green group is, mentioned biomass and something, and I think trying to hone in on what's already out there, and understanding just a little snippet of what's everybody doing and who's the natural leader in taking over this based on how much research has already been done, and what can we add to it. And if it's something that we know way more than everybody else, then we would be more the natural leaders of it. So that's, kind of getting a better understanding what everyone's doing and try to shift yourself to the natural leader of this type of project for the community.
Great recommendation. Joe and Jeff. Joe Aguirre and Jeff.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe. I don't know. I think we've already gone through biomass. It doesn't seem like it worked out for us at the last time. Of course, we've come a long way since that time. And I kind of let Steve Hollabaugh and Joe, they were the shoppers and they were the instigators of finding all this renewable for us. And it seemed real easy to get to where we are. And I figured, well, the rest of it is just going to be a piece of cake. But now I find out, talking to Joe, that it's not a piece of cake. It's getting tougher and tougher, and it's harder and harder, and costs more and more. So when we have our little meeting about clean and renewable power, because I'm confused now. What does the state want, clean or renewable, or both? Is it clean? Is it what they want, or renewable?
They want both, Joe. They want both.
Well, both. That's what our little meeting with both is going to be like, and I think that we'll find out a lot of information at that meeting. And I think UAMPS can still come up with some renewable for us.
Thank you, Joe. Jeff.
My initial feeling, just PUD's role, it feels just like more of a leadership role. We're doing that with UAMPS and Joe working with them, Horvath, and I agree with Tony. This is a thoughtful planning initiative. Power plants don't just happen overnight. They take years, 5+ years and more, sometimes a decade. We sign that we're interested in that UAMPS project, and then 5 to 10 years later, you finally actually see that happening. So, should we be playing a leadership role? That's my gut feeling for this initiative, for the local power. And I like I like the little processor micro hydro biomass. These projects are pretty exciting, and being the electric utility, it just makes sense for us to have that role. Whether or not we own the plant, that's a different story, but there's my 2 cents.
Brian, summarize.
Yeah, great discussions. I'm hearing the board looking for additional workshop and engagement on really clearly defining what the opportunities are out there and what the district's role may be in each of those opportunities. So this initiative has, as you all have mentioned, a little bit more legwork to do at the front end and really identifying what opportunities are out there. And so after May 19th, we'll start having those discussions in workshops and presentations on what information's out there. And, perhaps at the board's direction, really developing a more comprehensive task force to pursue these.
Brian, I think we should, thinking of May 19th, my recommendation is you do ESG either in May or June, and that we go right to the table of contents, if you agree with that.
Yeah, I think we've touched on the ESG at a high level, and we'll continue to incorporate it in future presentations.
Great.
Just 1 second here.
So this will be the last discussion. It's actually not a discussion. I mean, it can be, but we want to share with you what you're going to see in the final strategic plan. So this is the table of contents with the strategic plan. And I wanted to start by telling you that this is a very comprehensive document, and it will evolve and change. It's just not to sit in a file on your computer. But what's very important that I want you to hear me say that I can't wait to see this happen. There are going to be so many grants now that Regina Cooley has done such a good job of getting that $300,000 grant. Again, thank you, Regina. This strategic planning document banks love. Grant state and federal folks love. So all you'll have to do, the applications are ad nauseum, pages and pages, but you won't have to do a separate business plan. All you will have, you will on what the project is within the grant applications. But my government agencies just submit their strategic plan, which is this table of contents, all bound, just submit it and you're done. So it's going to expedite a lot of opportunities you might find that you want to apply for grants. So you can see it's very comprehensive. We start with the executive summary, the history of the TDPUD, organization overview, culture with mission values, cultural emphasis, staff development, and then all the processes that we've done, painting the landscape, SWOT, community outreach, all of the deliverables from community outreach will be in the appendix, staff development process, your goals, projects to achieve the goals, the cash cow analysis by department, the ESG model, that's a 21-22 year process, implementation strategies, local, regional, state, and best practices, the benchmarking we did, and then, of course, district innovation, your board of director initiatives, with attachments of the notes from each of those initiative meetings, those task force meetings. There'll be an organizational financial overview. And then in every appendix of a strategic plan, you have more financial information, including the budget when it's completed, with the community survey results and the focus group data. So when you get this before the May 19th meeting, that's what you're going to be adopting. Comments?
Wow. It's really something to see it all here. Like, we have been participating in this for months and months now, and it's really a lot. It's really impressive, and I'm really proud of it. I just think I think we, starting with mission and values and ending with budgets, I think it's going to be a really incredibly useful tool for us moving forward on many, many, many ways. Like, I need one of these for my house. What are we doing? And how are we going to get there? So I think I'm very excited. I'm very excited.
Any other comments from directors?
I think an unintended benefit for me was when you just said, the grant application. Wow, that's
yep.
That's pretty awesome.
Good.
So that unintended benefit, I had no idea. This is
It's huge. You just submit this with the application.
Yeah. Great. And again, ditto on what Krista said. It's pretty cool to see it really starting to come together and materialize, and a working document that we've worked extremely hard on. So thank you. A lot of work.
Any other director comments?
No, just thanks to everyone, staff, board, consultants, everyone who's touched this has done an excellent job. And the thoughts and the discussions that have come out of this, from starting with the community all the way through to this process today has been a tremendous learning curve for me, and I've been doing this for a while. But this is really great to see this organization take this big step. And I think this is a benefit to not only staff, but to the community as a whole, and to really put ourselves out there as to what we are trying to do moving forward as an organization to benefit this community.
Great. Thank you, Tony.
I'd like to thank all the personnel that went into the work that they put into this thing. When we first started it, that first meeting at the hotel over there, I said, oh my gosh, this is going to be a long and lengthy project. And here we are at our last workshop meeting. And a lot of work has gone in it from a lot of people. And I wish to thank them, and I'm really glad we're here at this point. Thank you, Pam.
You're welcome.
And as the newest board member coming in after it's already started, it's been an interesting process, that's for sure. But I look forward to the final report and seeing the fruits of everybody's labor from beginning to end.
Thank you, Director Harris. And I just want to tell you all, thank you for the board leadership. This is your strategic plan, but none of this would have been possible without Brian's leadership as general manager, and staff, and every single staff member plus employees that were involved in this. I just want to say a heartfelt thank you. Your thinking was extraordinarily innovative. It was never just casual. You gave it a lot of thought and energy, and I can't wait to see the implementation. Brian.
Thank you. Yeah, it's important to note that the board started this project at the beginning of last summer, I believe, when we started the discussions of developing a strategic plan and carrying that through, executing all of the hard work each of you done. And I really want to point out that there is commitment, contribution, innovative thinking and participation across the entire district. And that's really a key point to make when we're making a strategic plan as a public agency. We also included the community in this. And if we as a community, a public agency here, are going to have a strategic plan, it really needs all that input. And congratulations on that. You successfully accomplished that. There was some kind of vulnerable points where you really wanted to lean out there into the community and see what the feedback was. And that's important in developing this larger project. And we're going to carry that energy forward. This is not something that we plan on, backing off on any time in the future. We're going to carry this energy forward, pardon the pun, and, successfully accomplish the goals and initiatives you have all laid out before us and hopefully adopt on May 19th. So congratulations.
Well, I should have said thank you, Pam and Brian, because Brian, you've had a hard 6 months to manage this district, and you and your staff have done I think it's been a very good, we got the lights on, electricity's still going, and we have money in the bank still. And to me, I think we're still running the same for all the ups and downs that we've had for the last 6 months. Thank you again.
President Finn, to you.
I just want to echo pretty much what everybody has said. I just feel like this has been a labor of love and commitment and innovation, and it's taken everybody in the district. Staff has really given me their best, giving all of us their best. The community, we are doing this for the community, and they have been supportive of it, and so it's going in both directions, which is how any district is going to be successful. So I'm just really proud of what has been put before us here, and we all did this together. And I want to thank you, Pam, for being a guide for us, for teaching us how to accomplish this thing. It's a really it's a hard thing to bring ideas into the world and make them into things. And that's what this is going to do for us. I would say it's the hardest thing. So I'm very invigorated. I'm very excited for the future, and this is going to help us to make it the best. So thank you all.
And before you leave, I know Steve Gross doesn't usually say anything, but he's always here, and you sit through a lot of these. Steve, I'd be interested in your observations.
I don't think we have enough time for all of my observations. I expect and I hope that what we'll have is as has been said, a living product that will not be a tchotchke, a dust collector on the shelf, but a document that can be referred to and updated and grow and evolve with the district. And it's clear to me that you've all put a lot of work into this, and the staff has put a lot of work into it. The ideas, the organization. I'm always amazed at any time I go through one of these processes to see how you get from the beginning point to the end point. Because there's so much content. It could take years to go through this, and you've managed to get through it in a targeted amount of time. And I think, well, you should all be proud of your work, and I look forward to working with you to help you achieve what you and the community want to achieve. So pat yourselves on the shoulders. Job well done, everybody.
I think that covers everybody. We have a big day tomorrow. So I would like to finish with a thank you and I look forward to seeing everybody. I do, time-wise, Kim, last time you said a little bit earlier than 8:30, I think even a little bit, 8:10. I'm going to shoot for 8:10 because I have another document I want to distribute to everybody. I want to make sure that we have time to get settled and in place and not stressed. So everybody, thank you so much for all of your time and commitment tonight. And we will see you in the morning at the district. Wow.
Thank you.
This meeting's adjourned.